Okay, we got it up eventually. You saw a little bit of my Discord there. Hope you enjoyed the sneak peek into my official Discord that I had up at the side. People were chatting, and I was looking at what they were saying. Gang, hi. How's everyone doing? Tooth. Funny story about the tooth. Tomorrow's the day, or that's what they tell me, at least. So, the last day you get to make that joke. And then, this bad boy is going to be fixed. Hooray. Again, at least that's what they tell me. Hey, Zero Fox, how's it going? Cowboy Subs, nice to see you. We will be joined tonight by Short Fat Otaku and Brianna Wu, both. When they get here, I'll pull them in and we'll have our discussion. But before we do that, gang, we did it. Matt Gaetz dropped out of the running for AG. We did it. We did it, boys. We got him. Took him out. Pow, pow, pow. We did it. Lex Friedman was watching my show. He heard my arguments. He called up his boy Elon, who whispered in Trump's ear. Trump pulled him out. That's what happened, of course, right? There's a non-zero chance that's what happened. But no, it was yeah, I'm glad. Look, the Senate Republicans deserve this W, and they're holding this W. Apparently they told him that they just weren't the votes there to get him across the finish line, and thank goodness. Okay, like I said, Matt Gaetz is kind of like a bellwether for me, a weather vane, if you will, on how Congress was going to deal with the second Trump presidency. And I'm saying that this initial sign, pretty good, right? That they're not just going to roll over just because Trump says so. So that gives me some hope. And I'll take it where I can get it. It's not a lot, right? It's not a lot, but we will take it where we can get it. And yeah, it's possible that he might have a worse pick in the chamber. I don't know. But at least it won't be Matt Gaetz. Keto Burrito says, hey, Whick, it's time to get a even worse AG. Let's go. We don't know who it will, unless you guys have inside information. I don't, right? I have no idea who's going to pick. It could be worse, but it could very well be better. And I guess we'll find out, right? I guess we'll find out together. Oh, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk today. It's been a while since I've talked to either Short Fat Otaku or Brianna Wu. So it will be interesting to see how their views on what went wrong with the 2024 election, their views on why the Democratic Party just failed. I mean, I've shared my views with you, and I'm curious to hear theirs. So it'll be fun. It'll be a great kind of discussion. I'm really excited for it, and hopefully they get here soon. When they get here, they can jump backstage. Sounds good. Just jump backstage, and I'll pull y'all in. Okay, great. Whick, can you promise us, the people, something? Can you call Dev a communist? I will do that just for you. Remind me, okay? In case I forget. You gotta remind me. Just be like, yo, remember, you promised. Call Dev a communist. I saw him fighting with some dude on Twitter about Ukraine. I'm gonna talk to him about that a little bit. I'm curious. Like, this is the thing. Like, so for those of you who don't know, Ukraine recently launched an ICBM missile, non-nuclear, into a Ukrainian city to attack it. A lot of people are blaming this on the U.S. allowing, and Biden specifically, giving the green light to Ukraine to strike into Russia, right, with U.S. munitions and weapons and things like that. There is only one person to blame for this, and it's not the U.S., it's not Biden, it's Putin. Putin didn't have to launch those ICBMs, right? And he's been bombing these cities for years at this point, right? This isn't new. This isn't different. Again, like this idea of escalation. Like, I don't want war in Ukraine. I don't want war in Ukraine. And there's a very easy way to get there to be no war in Ukraine. And you know what that is? Putin can withdraw to the borders as they were and before he invaded, right? Just leave. Then we'll stop. No more missiles will come to you. Just stop doing it. Stop attacking and they'll stop defending themselves. It's an easy equation here, right? What am I giving to Dev here? People are DMing me in Discord. Hold up. Oh, they're downloading updates. So they are updating their Discords, and then they'll be here. I promise. Get on the YouTube thing. Two types of Gamergate come together to play election coroner. You know, we get people from all over the spectrum, okay? We get people from all over the spectrum, and we try to kind of get good perspectives. I enjoyed having them on before, right? I've had Brianna Wu and Dev on a couple times. I think that they have good energy, right? They play off each other well, and they have interesting things to say. I don't always agree with either of them, right? And we might fight tonight, I don't know. But I always find them intriguing, so we'll see. I know. Look, they say that they're downloading updates. They're showing me screenshots of these updates downloading. They'll be here. Don't worry. It's okay. We'll get there. We'll get into it, right? Please fight Dev. That would be hilarious. I'm not sure what we would fight on, but I'm sure we can find something to fight about. What happened to your face? I shaved my beard, okay? Someone paid me $500 to shave my beard, and I was like, I'll take 500 fucking bucks to shave my beard. That's what happened to my face. So, yeah. If you do end up fighting tonight, don't pull punches. People don't like when I... Look, they say they don't want me to pull punches, but they don't like full-on fight Wick, okay? Hello, you're live.
Hello.
Hi. Long time no see. How's it going?
I know. So I will be on camera in just a bit. Discord is updating a huge patch. So that is installing on my laptop. I'm just jumping in on my phone while that's waiting.
All good. Dev just got here too, so you were at least less late than the
Yeah,
Canadian.
I beat Dev, of course. You know, well, I'm in good shape. I do work out Dev, so, you know, I'm a little more fleet of foot, I think.
That's how it is, I guess. Oh. So,
yeah.
How are you two Americans coping with the election? How's it going?
I am not too embarrassed to admit I went into the bathroom yesterday and just cried for 20 minutes. It's been a lot of bad news lately. So, how about you, Wick? Any
You know what?
bathroom? Yeah?
It was a gut punch. I haven't cried, but we have some good news today. Gang, I don't know if you heard. Matt Gaetz withdrew his nomination for Attorney General. Hooray.
Is that really surprising? Does that surprise you?
I was worried that, look, I was using Matt Gaetz as a bellwether, okay? Whether or not the Senate would confirm that man would tell us a lot about how the Senate was going to handle a new Trump presidency. Are they just going to roll over and just do whatever he says like a dog? Or are they actually going to have some morals and principles and a spine? So you know what? I'm going to take it where I get it. I'm going to take a little hopium. I'm going to take the W, and I'm good, okay? Like, let me have this. Let me have this.
I like this. This is positive, Wick. I like this.
Well, you have to, right? Because it was kind of a gut punch seeing Trump win again, right? This is something I worked against, something I didn't want at all, and it sucks. But that's politics at the end of the day, and you got to just keep getting the W's where you can. And I think that this is a good start. Now we just got to get Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. and I'll be fine. So
Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard is DNI.
So I like the memes because that's pretty much what it means to me as a Canadian is memes. And the whole like Trump supporters are putting libtards in the crystals, like that was pretty funny when that was a meme for a while. And oh yeah, the meme of like Biden backstabbing the Democrats in the final hour, where it's like, who was the final vote against Kamala? And Biden turns around with a smile. Like that's just some funny shit. There's regardless of how you feel about the politics, there's always good memes on the internet.
true. Do you so have you faced any backlash from your community, Dev, on some of the Trump stuff?
Oh, of course.
I saw your video.
My channel's basically dead.
Basically dead.
Oh no, buddy.
Are you being hyperbolic right now? I don't think that's true.
I'm being somewhat hyperbolic, yeah. So I've looked at my my metrics for the past few months, basically since the Trump assassination attempt, right? And part of that was my fault because I was probably a bit too spicy, a bit too soon on the internet. I enjoy my edgy jokes, but I mean, for people who are politically partisan, edgy jokes only count if they're going one way. You know how it is. Yes. But I enjoy edgy jokes all around. So I was probably a bit too soon with some of them. So I mean, the L is mine in that case. But yeah, since then, there's just been that's about 4 months ago or so. There's been just a lot of unsubs. I'm probably 6,000 subs down now so far, and it hasn't stopped yet. However, my views have remained relatively the same, and the incomes remained relatively the same, maybe like 10% less. So I think it's mostly dead subs who are leaving. So it's not like my channel is dying, but also when you lose a bunch of subs all at once, that does downrank you in the algorithm, and you do have to like build yourself back up again, right? So this is one of those things where I've definitely felt the hit. But also, there's been a lot of people who like irrationally hate me now, right, for not being loyal to Trump. And I was like, well, I was never loyal to Trump. I was never fully against him either. But I was never like a partisan on any of this stuff. I was always someone who just kind of talked about the things as I saw them. I mean, I recall like putting out some videos over the course of Trump's first term where I said some things about him that I liked. It's like, well, I think he did this right, he did this right. But I also said that I said that I've reposted this clip several times now because I think it's probably one of my better, Nostradamus moments, where early 2017 I said the media was behaving so poorly with regards to legitimate Trump derangement syndrome that once Trump does something that's actually bad, that isn't just something that they're soying out about, no one's going to believe them anymore because they will have burned all their goodwill with the general populace. And that happened. That's exactly how it happened.
It's a boy who cried wolf, basically, right? They were crying wolf the entire time, and then a wolf showed up and... Well,
I think that's why I very strategically stayed quiet about a lot of this stuff, like the appointees like Matt Gaetz and all of that. It's not so much that I like that. I mean, obviously, I think Tulsi Gabbard for DNI is just insanity, right? But at the same time, I'm thinking what Resistance 2.0 is going to look like, and I think Dev, you're dead on that. One of our big mistakes was screaming from the rooftops about every single thing, and we've got to save that ammunition for when it really counts this time around. And yeah, the other thing is, I think it's true that if we come out in the, my side is just automatically opposed to everything, all that is going to do is put the Republicans in a position where they feel like they have to defend everything, right? And I think like this Matt Gaetz example is one where, we didn't hit the roof. The New York Times came out with a really well-reported story about the conflicts of interest and the issues with him being there. And then, private pressure was applied to call him to pull aside. And I think that's just about right. So, one of the things I'm going to try to do, and this is taking a lot of good faith on my part because I'm not a Trump guy, I'm not a Republican, but I think the truth is half the country believes in this guy, and half the country is so pissed off at progressivism that they find us more, disgusting than Trump, which is a really hard thing to stomach. So I think that's something we've got to make our bed with is how do we have a country together with people that think like that? And it's a hard question,
Yeah, there's two things I want to ask you about that, actually, Brianna.
Yeah.
Let me make a little money, get the super chats out of the way here. $5 from Cameraman 502 to say, I believe this was the second sign of the Senate GOP not bending to Trump's wish since an election. The first was picking Thune over Scott. That's fair. And then Honkler says, I think the come up is on the way for Dev now that the echo chamber right wingers have left. Course correction done. Now the real work begins. Fair. I mean, I think all. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm trying to think back on the timeline here. This might be a story that I've told you, Whick, before, but I don't think I've told you this, Brianna. I started my channel in 2009 when I was much younger, and it was just me and my friends like running around my hometown with a camera making like anime videos, right? It wasn't at all a political channel. And then like you had like the wave of Let's Plays in like 2010, 2011, and I did some of those and I made some friends there. And then Gamergate happened. I did a bunch of Gamergate videos, and that's kind of when I met like people like Sargon and other people. However, when 2016 happened, I lost a bunch of my left-leaning friends around 2017-ish because they all moved leftward. And I went through a huge audience purge and a huge connections purge because they basically said, well, you're not radicalizing leftward. You're not like turning into this kind of like smash the state, anarchist, leftist type. So fuck you. You're just like pro-Trump. And it's like, well, I wasn't pro-Trump. But so I lost a lot of people that I knew, a lot of viewers and a lot of fans. And now I'm kind of going through the same thing, and I have been for the past 2 years of just now my right-leaning connections and my right-leaning friends and my right-leaning viewers are all leaving. And I think I'm at the end of that now. But it's one of those things where it's like having to repeatedly purge your own audience because they get too extreme is kind of a rough thing to do, because you also have to ask yourself like, well, that's like 1,000 people who have left or something, right? Like, and you're just one person. Are you sure that you're the one who's actually correct here? Or is it the 1,000 people who are all telling you that you're wrong, and maybe you actually are wrong? Like, you have to. It's very easy to fall into an echo chamber, and I try very hard not to do that. But even then, the people who have left are all now on like other channels, on like, you know, Dev is now total, like, well, on these videos that say Dev is now evil, you know, and they're in the comments of those videos saying, yeah, Dev's made an echo chamber of his community, and I'm like, no, I haven't. But like, there's irrational hatred. And then there's people who actually have good critiques of you, and you must balance. You must be able to sniff out which one is which.
That is extremely hard to do, especially when the voices seem to be like all coming at once, right? And I guess I wanted to ask Brianna this before I forget. I know that you've gotten a lot of flack, especially lately, for some of your for some of your appearances on certain
When
shows.
am I not getting flack? Just what point of my career am I not getting flack? Again, when was that?
Fair enough.
I think it's in
Fair
10
enough.
years of flack, actually. But go ahead.
But it does come from different sources, right? Depending on the day. So I'm just wondering, like, how you've been able to kind of, to Dev's point there, like, how do you sniff out like real critique and honest critique from just the noise? Because I think as an electorate, like, to bring this back to the topic at hand, Democrats have to do that as well.
That's right.
We're getting 1,000 different voices, well, even more than that, telling this is what the Democrats did wrong. And some of it's bullshit, right? Some of it's just Republicans saying, look at you. We're going to put you in the crystal. Ha ha ha. Right. And then some of it's like actually, I think, pertinent. So how do we sift? Go ahead.
Well, for me, it's like, look, it really goes both ways. And Dev, you understand this too. There are all kinds of people that love me and write me stuff saying like, oh, I love everything you do, and you tune that. Right. And you also tune out the people, they're like, oh, I just hate everything that you do. You're evil. Right. You have people around you that you trust. And yeah, Dev, I was really thinking about this before the show tonight. Like, how weird is it that as much as we hated each other in 2016, you and I are basically 100% on the same page nowadays? You know, Free Press and Barry Weiss wrote about this, calling it essentially the Great Scramble, as, you know, this left versus right lines are redrawn, and people are really thinking through what's important to them and which team they're on. And now, like, Whick, Dev, you, and like, I think the three of us are on the same team, essentially. Like, we believe, generally speaking, in liberalism, but we see how this playbook of cutting down on free speech is not leading to power for the causes we believe in. We're very opposed to that. We see how this progressive political project is not leading to anything good. It has authoritarian tendencies. And we also see very clearly like the dangers of Donald Trump. And, you know, I think for people like us that are willing to critique the right when there's a salient point and then the left when there's a salient point, I actually think like this is a growing electorate. It's all these people that are stuck in these old battle lines. They just can't move beyond that, or at least that's the way I see it.
So here's the thing, right? I'm sure that if this were a more normal political situation, you and I would have some fairly significant disagreements on policy.
Yeah.
But we don't exist in that world right now because right now the argument is people who want to destroy our civilization either from the outside or from the inside, and people who
Yep.
don't. And that's
Yep.
kind of where we are right now. It's like, well, we can discuss differences and how much the rich should be taxed after those people are handled. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go through it. What are we on this different page about these days? Like trans rights, I think we've got the same opinion on trans stuff, right?
I think so,
or am I
yeah.
mistaken? Yeah. I
I think
mean,
so, yeah.
free speech, we're on the same like view with that. I think we both agree feminism as a political movement, like the 2010 era feminism where I met you, that is a dead political force. We agree on that, right? We
Dead, but
agree.
also
Yeah.
I think it's been bad for a lot of people too in a lot of ways. It has
Yeah.
not been all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah. I think we agree. Abortion
Actually, wait.
access. Go ahead. Yeah.
Here, if Gamergate 1 happened today, would you be pro Gamergate?
Oh, that's tough. No, I think I condemn both sides, to be honest with you. I think the SJW stuff I was doing and trying to culturally silence people in the game industry, I would not do that again. But the harassment campaign, there was a lot. I condemn death threats and these kind of harassment operations today too. So
Yeah, fair enough. Like there's definitely you can go back and watch like even like my old videos, Sargon's old videos, even Medicare's old videos, like back in 2014 when it was happening, and everyone said, "Stop threatening them. We're here to actually talk about the journalism." But I mean, there's always going to be like randoms on Twitter with sock puppet accounts who do whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's so weird. Like you and I are on the same side now. That's just fucking crazy to me.
I mean, maybe something philosophically. Like I know that we talked about maybe we talked briefly like a year ago about income inequality, and I said that was not as big of an issue as you seem to think it is.
Mhm.
So maybe something there, but I think these are minor things in comparison to, hey, should we be pro Russia or not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And as it rapes Eastern Europe, maybe we like it's a bigger question.
I think there's one of the good indicators I think of where these battle lines are being drawn, right? Because the Great Scramble, as you called it, I guess. Are you guys familiar with the issues regarding Sarah McBride, especially
Oh God.
from
Yeah.
the left?
No idea. I don't know. No idea who this is.
Oh my God. Oh, Dev. You're in for a treat.
Do you want
Yeah.
me to tell the story, or do you want to tell the
Go
story?
ahead, Whick.
Okay.
I'll save my
Sarah
voice.
Sarah McBride is the first transsexual legislator to be elected to Congress, right? And I believe. And so she goes to Congress, and Nancy Mace, I believe is her name, leads a charge to kind of change the bathroom laws in the House because she's coming in. And she makes these TikToks of her writing biological on a sign and putting it in front of like the bathroom signs and all these things, right? Pretty cringe shit. Sarah McBride, I should say, instead of engaging with that, she simply puts out, I think, a pretty wonderful statement saying basically, you know what? I'm not here to argue about bathrooms. I don't like the law, but I'll obey it. I'm here to get shit done for my constituents. And the left has gone insane and are disowning her because she won't throw a fit. And I think that's the difference between like the reasonable and the people who just want everything to be burned.
Yeah, this reminds me of Blair White, who does the same thing, because Blair White always goes into the men's room, and like whenever she's out, yeah, she said it several times.
That's
she goes into the bedroom. And it's like, well, I mean, I guess go where you want. Like, I don't really care that much. It's not a big deal to me. But it's one of those things where I have seen like very very fringe far leftist accounts shit on Blair White for doing that, and it's like, well, like who cares, man?
Well, so many things here. I mean, first of all, Wick, I think your read of the situation is just flawed. I think everyone here is falling for something. There's a much more simple explanation here that I just can't believe no one has thought of. What happened is the Democratic Party leadership obviously had a meeting with her. They had a long discussion and they let her know if this was a fight they were going to have with her. And they had a strategy meeting and decided if this was something worth putting political capital on. Maybe Sarah wanted that, maybe she didn't. But from what I know from my sources inside the party, I know there was very little appetite to have a fight over this. So I personally interpret this as, for whatever reason, this was just not a fight anyone in the party wanted to have, and Sarah exited gracefully. So I think it is a mistake to attribute any part of this to her, as
Fair.
much as she's there to play game with she's there to play ball with the party. That's how she became the first trans elected person, was essentially being silent and working as a party institutionalist. And yeah, it was more successful than my 2016 congressional run. So more power to her. She's clearly got the playbook for trans people to get political power, and I'm not going to second guess that, even though, it hurts me to see her rolling over on this. I have a really good friend of mine who's a trans federal employee. She is really worried about this bill Nancy Mace wants to do, making this illegal for any trans federal employee to use the bathroom. My friend is gorgeous. No one would ever know, but there are people at work that knew her before, and this is really going to impact her life. So, I think there's some very serious issues at hand here, in my view.
So, on fair enough. Like, if you have sources I don't, then fair enough. But that then begs the question, right? Is this a fight that the Democrats should have, right?
I mean, I don't see how it could be won. I mean, I knew we were going to get into this. I personally think the trans issues lost the Democrats the election. I've looked at the polling. I've looked at the salience of those anti-trans ads here in the United States.
Really?
I think that, yeah, I 100% believe this. I have sources from inside, that basically know the people that created those ads. And what they found was the anti trans ads didn't quite make up the difference that women felt on abortion towards the Democrats, but it was close. It was enough to put a huge dent in it. So when you look at all those issues together, I think trans issues handed the Republicans the election. And the reason, Wick, you were saying at the beginning of the show, so many trans people are angry at me right now is I feel very, very strongly that trans public policy messaging has got to change. We've got to drop the sports shit. We've got to get back to basics. As far as, Dev, you have a brilliant video everyone should watch where you're talking about how you wish transmedicalism had won. That is the message
Yep.
we've got to move back to. And that is the only future trans civil rights are going to have, because this wildly expansionist idea that we've been on is just dead. Like, there's not a political appetite in the Democratic Party to stand by it, and we've got to retreat to safer ground.
As a part of that, there was, I think, actually a better video where I just said everything normal is right wing,
Yep.
because there's definitely this anarchist streak on the left. They're far to the left of the Democrat Party, or like most liberal parties in other democracies, and they basically say, well, the idea of normalcy itself is fascist because it oppresses people, it makes them fit into a mold, right? So
Yeah.
we need to, if you go and work out every day, you're a fascist, right? Because you're imposing strict discipline on yourself. If you have like a nuclear family, you're a fascist, and I go down the list of all these arguments that I've seen over the years, and I'm like, this is the reason why people are generally moving towards the right, at least in some places, because you're taking things that are normal, everyday human experiences that are, for the most part, apolitical, just things that regular people want to do and think are good, and you're saying, no, that's evil. It's like, well, you're obviously going to lose everyone whenever you do that.
So,
Yeah.
in the interest of kind of like giving because when it comes to why did we lose the election, I don't think we can point to any one thing, right? Like, there's a lot of missteps that I think we
I have a
made.
hypothesis, actually.
Oh, by
Yeah.
all means, go ahead.
So I do think like the trans stuff as a subsection of the woke stuff might be, I mostly agree with you, Brianna. I think it's like a second place reason. I think the first reason.
Inflation was the biggest, to be clear.
Yes,
I'm
that
saying
was
after all those major variables, I'm saying trans made up the difference. So I should have said that.
Right. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, because I don't have any inside resources, but I have autism and I have a lot of it. I mean, you can't make that 4-hour video that I made without autism, right?
Yes.
So
I think you have turbo autism, which is the good autism.
Turbo, that's the good autism?
That's the good autism.
Are we doing an autism tier list today? I could bring
the research-oriented autism, yeah. But yeah, I think basically, if you look at the data comparing the various elections, like the past 4 cycles or so, the past 4 presidential elections, the gap between the winner and the loser in the popular vote has remained steady, proportionally. So it's not like there was some sort of crazy swing in one way or another, and it's not like there was no insane amounts. Of, the zero hedge guy was like, where did the 20 million ballots go this time? It's like, it's so fucking stupid. If you actually look at the data, it all works out, and I'll do a video on that probably in the next few weeks on how that all works. But what you do see is that Trump gained, in terms of just raw votes, he gained about the same number of votes proportionally as the American population grew. And what that says to me is that he basically kept, like, there wasn't any new voter bases he was tapping into. It was all the same people pretty much. He didn't like grab some new coalition of new people or anything like that. However, Kamala Harris lost 7 million votes compared to Biden. Yeah, it's like 7 million. And what that says to me is, like, for a variety of reasons, people who are kind of like lukewarm Democrats, or like lukewarm liberals, or like they're only like partially political. They only come out and vote when it's really important to them, and otherwise they just stay home. Like, those are who she lost, I think, because it looks like the Democratic base was still there. It's just that the extra 7 million, they didn't show up, and maybe part of that is because mail-in voting was not as necessary because COVID's gone. Maybe part of that is because the urgency of kicking Trump out is no longer there, because I do think that in very basic terms, Trump lost 2020 because of COVID, and Kamala lost 2020 because of inflation. And so there's something else here too, because it's not just a right-wing shift. I know lots of people are doomering about governments all over the world moving right-wing, but I mean, in 2022, Australia moved left-wing. Right, I think Austria moved left-wing as well. Japan's moving left-wing in its next election. I think what's happening now is just the world's fucked. The COVID fucked the world, and then the economic fallout of that also fucked the world. And basically, people are voting out whoever's in power, whether it's left or right.
The incumbent purge.
Yes, the incumbent purge. Because if you look at all the democracies in the world, it's about 50-50 on whether or not it's left-wingers or right-wingers winning. It's just that the people who have been in power are getting voted out. And if they've been in power for longer, then they're really getting voted out.
So just one second before you go, Whick. My Discord finally updated. I'm jumping out. I'm jumping over to my laptop, so I have video. So I'll be right back.
Yeah. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. Well, when she gets back, and hopefully it'll be soon, I'll give my take, because I think one of the issues that I see with some of the analysis here is, I agree that inflation was the number one issue, but one of the things that I worry about, and when you say things like, oh, incumbents were just getting slaughtered left and right, like this is a worldwide thing. This is kind of worldwide kind of issue. When I look at the actual data coming out from the 2024 exit polls, right? Who voted, how they voted, who were they, etc. It's clear that this was a winnable election, right? We didn't get slaughtered. We lost by about 2% of the vote in Pennsylvania, 2% in Wisconsin, 2% in Michigan. If that had flipped, we would be looking at President-elect Kamala Harris right now. So this idea that, oh, it was just this incumbent slaughter, and it was simply like all these things, like, and there was nothing we could do, I just reject. I think that, again, there's no real one issue I can point to, but a combination of all the things that I think Brianna Wu's been saying, and you've hinted at too, is there's this just, a lot of people just stayed home because they were tired of all the woke bullshit, honestly, and they were like, you know what, I hate Trump and I'm not going to vote for the guy, but and they kind of just sat home, especially in Pennsylvania, right?
Well, I'm sure some of it is that Kamala Harris is People don't want to hear it, but she's kind of unlikable as a person, in my opinion. And also the fact that she didn't win a primary, I think to the average person just makes her seem less legitimate. And that was a big thing that the Democrats fucked up on, is they should have figured out that Biden was too old to do this shit like in January, and they should have run a primary. And so then at least the person who won that primary would appear to be more legitimate because they actually won a vote and when they weren't just chosen.
Error upon error, I think that whole situation was handled extremely poorly. But it is what it is.
I mean, would y'all agree with me? The core problem here is Biden. Like he should never have been our nominee.
I think,
and I felt that from the beginning. Yeah, I know you disagree with me, Whick, but he, he was basically a corpse when he ran in 2016, and every Democratic operative I knew was really hoping he would drop out, and he stayed in it because of his ego. And we did not really have, like, are you really telling me if we run Gavin Newsom this year that Trump would be president? Because I don't think that's true.
So here's my take on this, and you may disagree, you may not, actually.
Sure.
I think, yes, Biden choosing to run for a second term was a mistake. He should not have done it. But once he did, we compounded our error by forcing him out. And I think that just fed into all the narratives. And a lot of people were like, well, it took a lot of the issues off the table that I think we could have held a stronger ground. We have some exit poll data from Real Clear Politics and some other sources that show that for the people whose democracy was the number one issue on the ballot, Trump actually won that. He won that, at least according to the Real Clear Politics exit polls, right? Which again, exit polls, but it's best data we got. I think that did matter. Like I said, I don't think it would have changed the outcome 100%. But
real quick, you should turn up Brianna, says the chat.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can make you a little louder. Can you say a few things, Brianna, just so we can test?
Testing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. My voice is very quiet.
Yeah, so you are just a little quieter. I have you up as far as I can go. If you can turn your mic up just a smidge, that would help. But hopefully get it.
I assume you're currently traveling, right?
Yes, I am. What, you don't think I live at the Hilton typically? So
the first man, as soon as you turned that on, I thought that was like a PS3 in the background. Whatever that thing is.
No, that's a Mac bag for makeup. I didn't have any eyeshadow.
Okay, well, I'm glad we got the. It seems the audio issues have been sorted.
Dev, I gotta look good for you. There we go.
But yeah, so like that's my thought on the whole kerfuffle with Biden. I think again, in making it a public fight, also did us no favors, right? Right. It was a shit show all around.
I hear you. I think the really big thing is I think it's hard to. I think the Democratic Party. I think the really big problem is the Republican Party has become the big tent party, which is why so many minorities are changing over to them. And, unlike a lot of these progressive operatives, I have gone and talked to the elevator union and tried to get their endorsement, right? Like I've actually spent a lot of time out there talking to the working class people we say Democrats represent. And you are just out of your damn mind if you think they're like, oh, we're gonna ask everyone their pronouns and let's do some feminist theory here. That's just not how so much of the party works. And the culture of the Democratic Party, because of this progressive fringe, has become more and more elitist to the point that it's really hard for us to attract people over here. So any future for the Democratic Party, it hurts me to say, because Dev, how hard I fought to make identity politics something that the Democrats stood for. We've tried this. It's a dead playbook. It does not work. Any future from the party has got to say, look, respect for people, 100%. We'll talk to you with respect. We're a big tent party. We stand for everyone. But we're not going to play this game of carefully walking around eggshells with all this stuff. People have to be able to say what they think, and we've got to be able to respectfully disagree. And if the Democratic Party is going to survive, that has to change.
How do we win back the people that we've lost? Oh, first of all, $10. Sorry, got to make a little money. I think the main three issues were crime, immigration, social issues, and inflation. That's 4 issues, but okay. We all are tired of the way things have gone. Also, Kamala is just awful on a personal level. Thank you for the $10, Satan Gray. I really appreciate it.
I think he's linking crime and immigration into one problem there. Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah.
But regardless, right? Like, I guess my question is, right? So for the people who sat at home, and the people, and there are some, right? About, I think, I'm looking for the exact number, and I'll find it eventually. But off my head, I think there's about 5% who switched their vote, right? Who voted for Biden in 2020 and who voted for Trump in 2024. How do we win those people back? What do we think?
What do you think, Dev?
Well, not with Gavin Newsom. I disagree with you on that. Actually, I think he would have lost.
Really?
Yeah, I think basically the two up and comers right now, you have Newsom and you have Shapiro, and Shapiro's the way to go. Shapiro's the way to go because Newsom seems to be the progressive wing, or more the progressive wing, and Shapiro seems to be more of the like realistic, grounded, almost working class wing.
As a Pennsylvania resident who voted for Shapiro and who knows Shapiro and Fetterman, to be clear, I think that you're exactly right that the future of the Democratic Party is in Pennsylvania and the Rust Belt. Like, we need a thought leaders, and we need a platform that comes from there. It can't come from California anymore. It just can't. It's failed.
Well, there's
okay.
Well, one at a time.
Go ahead.
Well, there's optics, because California is very unpopular optically, but there's also like a lot of corruption. Lots of places that have just like one party rule, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, you get a lot of like bureaucratic corruption there. California is no different. Like, no one wants to go to fucking San Francisco and walk through the shitting streets, right? Like, no one wants to live there. No one wants to live in like a tent city. It's just, there's so many bad things that have come out of the Democrat control over California for the past 40 years or something. Like, it's there's not enough competition in a location like that. But Pennsylvania has it. And that's probably why you have a much more competent governor.
I do feel like I have to say, I think there is a variable both of y'all are missing, which is Gavin Newsom is devastatingly handsome. And there are a lot of women voters across this country. And like Josh Shapiro, also extremely, extremely sexy. But Gavin Newsom, the way he commands a room, it is electric. And I would urge you not to discount that.
Look, I'll lead that section of the discourse to y'all.
God, I've heard you talk about Tulsi Gabbard. You
know what? So. I'm not voting for Tulsi Gabbard, though. As hot as I might find her, I don't like her, right? I think she's dumb. But no, I'm not. I get what you're saying. I guess so with Shapiro, I know personal MAGA family members who voted for Trump in 2020 and 2024, who also voted for Shapiro, right? They like what Shapiro's doing in Pennsylvania. He's got like a fairly good approval rate. Last I saw it was like 60% or something like that. He got a commanding amount of the vote when he was elected, right, to governorship. Whatever he's doing, right, to win over Republicans, I think it works. And I don't think we have one of all those things that I think is a mistake that a lot of people are doing. And I've talked to Econoboy about this. I've seen Pisco talk about this. I've seen others talk about this. Is they're like, we didn't go far left enough. They're like, if we went more far left, then the people who stayed home would have showed up. That is an argument they make, and I reject that argument outright.
Really?
I think we've hit our cap.
Econoboy says that?
Yes, that's
Econoboy says that? That is insane,
I've heard that a lot.
dude.
I've heard that a lot.
Oh, that's cope. That's cope, y'all.
But that's their argument. Their argument to kind of steelman it is that they had nothing Kamala was saying appealed to them, and so a lot of progressives just stayed home instead of coming out because there was no kind of way there was nothing to rally behind, really. No really progressive policy to rally behind. And to be fair to him, there is kind of a point there. Like Kamala's big policies that I can recall, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, my memory is not the best. Child tax credit, she was pushing that. $50,000 for new home buyers, okay, she was pushing that. And other than that, what was she offering?
She had some ideas about black businesses, very targeted for black people.
Okay.
See, so here's the thing, right? I think what really tanked Kamala Harris is the fact that it's very easy to dig up clips from her in 2019 and 2020 where she was saying some absolutely batshit things, and she did some
Yeah.
batshit stuff, and then just repost those around social media. And it's like, well, when people said like Kamala Harris is a Marxist, that was a bit overblown, right? But you can I decided to source some of these because I was going to put out a Kamala video, and then I got sick throughout October. But
Oh,
I decided to
no.
source. Yeah, I had COVID for like 2 weeks. I was fucked.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dove. I didn't know that.
So the reason that I put out that 4-hour video, there were supposed to be like 4 of those, some like all throughout October. I'll still do them because fuck it.
You're the
I've already
reason we
worked a lot on
lost.
them.
If we had those videos, we could have pushed Kamala over the finish line.
Yeah.
Trump
Is that
because
the
of
way?
you. Okay.
Honestly, I blame Destiny. I think it's his fault we lost. If he'd put out his January 6th insurrection video,
I mean, his response
this
to
is
this,
all on him.
yeah, the response to the like memes aside, the response to his assassination attempt, or
Not good.
his response
Not
to
good.
the attack, yeah, did us no favors.
Nope.
Also, I've been paid to call you a communist, Dev, and I will
Okay.
do so for money. So you're a
Is
communist.
no one calling me a communist?
Not yet,
Come
but
on.
hey, look, well, the night's young. Okay, we got a lot of time.
Look, I got my Porsches from the proletariat, y'all. Come on.
$10 from Joe Martin.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I'm just making a little money here. Whick and Party. The issue is the Dems didn't learn in 2016. Superdelegates selecting the party's rep for president fails what democracy means and hurts the people's interest. And then $5 from Rizius. I don't like the Biden is a corpse talking point. Since bar the poor debate formats, there was much bubbling moments with both Trump and Biden. And then $5 more.
Now, do you agree with me? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And then you can listen, Ossoff is a beautiful man to me. I have shit taste. He'd have my vote, to be honest. Newsom looks more like the used car salesman took office.
Oh,
okay, go ahead.
no. Oh, no. Don't talk about daddy that way. No, I was just going to say, you agree with me that Biden is a corpse. Right? Like you called him that in one of your videos. Yeah.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
He was,
yeah.
he looked like he was being reanimated by magic temporarily or something. Like, he was not all there.
Don't mess with my magic, brother, okay? He's not a corpse when I got my strings on him, okay? That's all I'm saying.
So when I was digging into basically just the stuff that Kamala Harris had done, because I wanted to fact check some of this, because what I've noticed is like whenever like a crazy claim from some right wing account like DC Drano or something goes viral, there's usually like a nugget of truth in there, but it's been like built up into a huge fucking thing that doesn't really completely map onto reality. So I wanted to see like one thing that I found out is that like back during the George Floyd kind of like 2020 summer of love thing, Kamala did support that one BLM bail fund that ended up releasing people who turned around and then committed more crimes. And like one of them ended up being a murderer. One of them was a drunk driver that killed someone. One of them was an arsonist. And it's like, if you are you're an attorney general and you know what it's like to be in the legal system, like how could you possibly say this stuff, say this anti-cop stuff back when that was a big deal in the summer of 2020? And like those clips just came back to haunt her on social media.
Yep.
And it's like
I think it's a big. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think you're right, Dev. I think the problem is Democrats have a way of speaking where we will go to every single group. And like, Whick, I don't know if you've worked enough at the party to get this kind of stuff sent to you. It will be like, all right, all hands bulletin. If you're talking to Black people, here's the magic words to use when you talk to Black people. We've focus tested this. Say this phrase, say this phrase, say this phrase. Okay, and then if you're talking to Latinos, here's the magic phrases you use, blah, blah, blah. And then if you're talking to trans people or gay people, here's the magic words that you use. And the thing is, like, I guess that, like, focus testing has a point, but the problem is when you get all this together, it's a really freakishly fake way of talking to people. It sounds so phony. If I had to, like, put a face on all of that, Kamala Harris is 1000% the face of that. Because she
Yeah.
sounds so fake and bullshitty when she talks. It's like, I know she's a smart person. I've worked with her office. It was a fantastic experience. 10 out of 10 sharp. I know the girl is smart because she's gotten so much done. But when it comes to politicianing, she's the biggest example of democratic, like, focus-tested brain rot I've ever seen in my entire career.
A lot of what I hear from more center-leaning people, and we're going to be talking to an actual centrist on Monday. We're going to have Tracing Woodbrains
Whoa.
from the Bar Pod.
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, he's going to be coming on. We're going to talk.
He's such a good friend. Yeah.
He had a little Twitter essay right after the election, the night of the election, in fact, when we were all pretty new Trump was going to win. And I wish I had it up with me. I don't. But he said something that I think is poignant. That as a moderate, as a centrist, he felt that, like everyone was saying, oh, Kamala ran to the center. Kamala ran to the center. She ran to the center. She was trying to pander to the center. He was like, as a centrist, I never felt once heard or listened to. It was, and the way he described it is that there was a bunch of young, professional leftists were trying to craft a message that they thought would appeal to centrists. And it didn't work because it was obviously from young progressive leftists. And I worry that our focus on, like, focus testing, like you put it, has degraded our ability to talk to people, to just be fucking honest.
Yep. So here's the thing. If you look at J.D. Vance, regardless of how you feel about the guy's policies, he is clearly who he presents himself to be. Like, he talks like a normal guy. And same with Tim Walz. He is that guy. Like, all the goofiness is him. That's who he is, right? And I do think just how manufactured Kamala Harris seemed to be. It was the same flaw with Hillary Clinton, which kind of sucks because they're both women. It's like, why is it that two high profile female candidates have had this same problem?
Oh, I got a theory on that if you want to hear. Right.
I mean, well, when was the last time I was not on fire, right? Like, if you just speak your mind, you get in trouble in ways that I don't think men always do. So I think that's part of it. Like, look at women politicians. The most popular, like, mode for a woman politician is policy woke, who is very, very measured in what she has to say. And those the double standards, in my view.
I think that actually kind of ties into my hypothesis, because while I think that's true, I think that the fear of that women have leads them to be less genuine and come off as less genuine. I think that I wonder, and this again, it's just a theory, okay, that even with the shit that gets thrown at you, if a woman politician was just upfront and honest and just like, I'm going to say, well, what it is, I don't care what you call me, right? I don't care the misogynist shit you throw at me. I think that's a winning move politically. I think that it might be harder to do as a, as a person getting all that shit, right? But I think it actually sells. I don't know. That's my hypothesis, is that they're too scared of coming off as of all these things, so they workshop themselves into this obviously workshopped thing, and they don't seem like a person anymore. I don't know. That's my thing.
I agree. I mean, I don't know. I have a constituency. Certainly, I have people that like my work and appreciate it. So I don't know. I think it's very difficult. I mean, I think the most genuine politician we probably have is AOC, who I disagree with on a ton of stuff. But I think she's a really good example of that authenticity really shining through. So there it is.
To be fair, I mean, I think Tulsi Gabbard actually comes off as pretty genuine as well, despite disagreeing with her. Like, she is that person, it seems like.
That's fair.
Look, I'm going to be real. Fetterman is the most honest, whether you like him or not. He's like, whatever, man.
I love him.
He's like, whatever. His reaction his reaction to the AG dropping out, right? To Matt Gaetz dropping out was like, so oh my God, who could have seen it coming? Like, that kind of, like, just no bullshit. That's what we need in the Democratic Party. I long for it, but it's all workshopped. It's all so fake. There's no other word for it.
What about when those freak Hamas fans were outside his house protesting, and he just started waving the Israel flag from the second floor?
Yeah,
that is how you talk to them. Yeah.
On that note, actually, there's a lot of people who will point to Dearborn, Michigan, right? Michigan, obviously, is a swing state. Obviously, we lost it.
Yep.
And they will point to Kamala Harris's refusal to call for, refusal to pander more. They're very vague on what she refused to do, right? Okay. But they're saying because of the Gaza conflict, that costs the Democrats the election. How much credence do we give this? Do we think there's any there? Because, again, Dearborn, Michigan did vote Trump. And Dearborn, Michigan is a swing state. So, I mean, is there something there?
I don't think so. I really don't.
Yeah. Look, Whick, you know my opinion. I am an Israel super soldier. They gave me the Zionist super soldier serum. They injected it into my body. I am 100% there with Israel. And, I think there are more votes. Like, do these people not remember what America was like after 9/11? There's so many more votes in this country for saying, yeah, fuck terrorists. Fuck terrorism. We don't stand with Hamas and those freaks. Fuck them. Of course that's the right message. And the fact that she wouldn't, she tried to hedge it and please, both the victims of October 7th and then the fans of terrorism is just the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Well, it appealed to neither of those groups, right? No, neither side liked her because of that. And I think that there's people who's saying that the Democrat Party is no longer the big tent party. And I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm torn on that.
Really?
Right, because
What?
I think we are so big tent that we try to pander to all these different groups in it, and it ends up no one's happy ever, right? And we have this fractured mess. Though I do see your point that this is something Lex Friedman actually said the other day on my channel when he was watching my show as he does.
Hey, Lex, unblock me on Twitter.
Is that he?
Lex has no idea who I am.
Sure, but his statement was this: that he was tired of people attacking the left for being on the left because they weren't left enough, and I do see that as a growing problem, and I worry that this election is going to empower the purgers, right, more than anything else. So one of the big reasons I didn't want Trump to win, right, one of the biggest reasons, because it would empower that wing of the Democratic Party that took power in 2016 era, right? After Trump won, we kind of gave the seat to a lot of these people who were like, we just need to become more leftist, more pure, right? And I worry that that's going to happen again. Yeah, I do.
Boy, I want to get the opposite way. I 100% agree with Destiny. I think it is time to put all the fringe leftists into the escape pod and just let them go somewhere else. I am done. And the reason I'm 1,000% done with these things is I've had a front row seat to progressivism for the last 10 years. I've worked with Cenk and I've worked with a ton of other groups trying to get people elected. And Whick, over and over again, is the same story. It is children who do not have the adult skills to work with others, focusing on these minor differences, unwilling to get shit done towards common goals. They get mega focused on stuff that just does not matter. They get obsessed with these ideas that are stupid, like we're not going to take corporate money or do this when you've got to have resources to win. No one is serious about bread and butter stuff like fundraising or data infrastructure, and they're really, really big on ideological purity. I've seen them hijack and cannibalize movement after movement after movement after movement. I'm just absolutely fucking done working with them. I've had enough of the children. I will never work with another progressive group like that in my entire career. Normie Democrats that are adults trying to get shit done, yeah, I will work with you. But I'm just so tired of giving these goddamn communists a second of attention, because all they do, they're a cancer to any organized political effort that they're involved with. And Dev, part of why I love your channel so much, you've talked so much about this, how there are virtues that the right wing has that we've got to get serious about, like the ability to work, thank you, sweetie, the ability to work towards common goals, the ability to grow up, act like an adult, take personal responsibility for your life. This is good stuff. for me, this is one of the reasons I think I've had a successful career is I grew up in a conservative family with those values, and I've applied it my entire career. The leftists have none of that. And I just think it is time to part ways. Let them go fuck up the Green Party for a cycle or two, because this is adult time and we've got to rebuild our party. I'm sorry if that's too strong.
I mean, this kind of reminds me of we had a conversation like a year ago where I pointed out that data came out of France that something like 90% of healthcare waste was cut when they added a $15 copay just to get in the door of the hospital.
Wow.
So it wasn't because you had a lot of people when it was completely free, you had tons of waste. When you had to pay $15 to go to the hospital, even though it's way cheaper than like the hundreds of thousands it could be, 90% of the waste was cut because people weren't going frivolously anymore. And I pointed out that leftists in France hated that idea because it wasn't ideologically pure. It wasn't healthcare is a human right. It wasn't, universal coverage for all, because some people don't have $15. But the practical trade-off of that is that you actually get to have a universal healthcare service that is mostly universal. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where you have the fringe that is really, really devoted to a specific idea, and they're willing to burn everything down to get it, and they don't even get it at the end.
And a lot to piggyback off all this, right? And don't worry, I'll steel man the other side later, but to join in on the pylon just for a moment, just as a treat for me, okay? Absolutely, right? They are always willing to sacrifice other people on their altar of their cause, right?
Yep.
Never themselves. Yep. It becomes impossible to deal with because you are more worried about offending them than getting something done. And sometimes look, offense is going to come. Sometimes you fuck up in your phrasing. Sometimes you do something wrong. That's fair, right? But the focus should be on fixing whatever it is that we want to fix. Whatever that might be at the time, whatever policy we want to enact, that should be the focus. Not, well, we should really elevate black voices when we talk about this issue. And the fact that we're all white here and there's not a black voice on the panel is really distressing to me. Shut up. I have black people on the time, right? Like, just let us talk as people. Stop trying to make this, I don't know. $5 from Satan Gray. For vets, there's a big issue with Walls, though. As soon as he was found out on his lie about details of his service. Nobody trusted him. He's also a FUD.
I think he means Fed?
No, FUD, like a FUD, Elmer Fudd. Like a doop, doop, doop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't mind the Elmer Fudd thing. It's kind of funny. I forget. There was a lie that came out of Tim Walz, but I don't know if it was about his service specifically. I think it was about the fact that he wasn't actually in China during the Tiananmen Square riots. He said he was, and it turns out like he was actually there several months later, and that was like, well, that makes you look pretty bad because he wouldn't just bite the bullet during the VP debate. Yeah. It's like you should have just said, "Yeah, I fucked up. Sorry."
True. I mean, like, yeah, that was his worst moment at the debate. I agree. $10 from Lawson Harrison. Whick, is being completely honest to voters always the best thing to do? Long term, yes, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, politics is about figuring out word choices and how to couch things, but sure, yeah.
I don't know, because I recall Obama at one point saying, like, no, this is not going to be a tax increase. This is going to be a decrease in your tax decreases. And I'm like, come on, man. Just say it. Come on, just be honest.
I'm thinking, like, right now I have one of the main things I'm working on, Dev, is trying to make transmedicalism a point of view that is represented in mainstream media. So I'm saying yes to Piers Morgan and trigonometry and free press, and I'm about to do a big debate that I can't announce yet. And it's the reason I've got like op-eds coming out. I've made it like a specific mission to talk about transmedicalism as a concept, to make sure that when we're like adjusting our trans public policy, that that's what we're thinking about. Like, this is something I've thought about strategically. It's something I'm doing. Now, as I'm talking about transmedicalism out there, do you think I'm going to really get into the details about like a stunning number of trans women don't get vaginoplasty? I don't understand it, but it's just true. So if I'm talking about like medical pathway to transition and access to bathrooms, like, I'm not going to get super segmented on, like who's got a penis and who's got a vagina in there. I'm going to use language to indicate a medical pathway where you can choose either option at the end. Does that kind of make sense to you? Like you've got to really be strategic about your communication so you can be accurate.
I don't think that's a lie.
No, it's not a lie. It's not a lie. It's making sure that you're communicating ideas clearly with the public. That, do you know what I mean? That doesn't get.
I think I know what you mean. I guess.
Yeah.
I think I know what you mean. But I guess if someone questioned you on it and was more direct and was like, "Listen, do they have to get a genital change or not?" You'd have to have an answer for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be straight with that. Though I think it's weird, but
anyway. It would be an odd question. But I mean, like, yes, one of the things that I think is unfortunate is I think the Democrats have become the party of fear. I think we're just scared. We're scared of Trump. We're scared of ourselves. We're scared. And I think it's doing us no favors. I know that there are people who, well, there are reports, and I don't know how true these are, right? But I've read these rumors that the reason that Kamala Harris did not go on Joe Rogan is because her advisors feared a backlash, right? Feared that there would be this progressive backlash because they've been calling Joe Rogan all sorts of names for years, right? And I even if she would have gone on and flubbed, I think that people respect that more than just refusing to take the field. But
I think so too.
Whick, this is a structural problem in the Democratic Party. And again, I don't know if you've worked enough canvassing events or worked with enough politicians now to understand this, but the audience capture, not the staff capture by Democrats is absolutely real. I've met the most professional non-binary people working Democratic events because they're so overrepresented on like Democratic staffs. And if you're talking about this progressive push for things, it is absolutely coming from inside the house. So what keeps me awake at night, and Dev, I would love to know if you agree with this, like the three of us agree that the Democratic Party is going to win elections again. It's got to change, right? We agree it's got to move away from this progressive fringe. I don't know structurally how much we can do that when the people actually running these elected officials are the exact same fucking nut jobs that are screaming at all the three of us all day on Twitter. Like it's the exact same mindset.
It's gonna not sound good, but it is the truth. You basically have to do what Trump's trying to do right now, which is just go through everyone and purge them all and replace them with his guys. Like you're gonna have to start purging progressives. There's no way out of this.
I agree.
Put them in camps and stuff. What are we doing? No, like I get what you're saying, right?
No. I'm saying, look, here's a really concrete example, Wick. The White House for this Gaza shit. The White House staffers in this election went outside in front of the White House and protested Joe Biden. They protested Joe Biden with their face on. People that worked at the White House to serve the president. Every single one of those people should have been fired. That is not the way the Democratic staffers behave, but they felt so entitled that they wanted to undermine the position of the president that they were serving. And it is just an entitled mindset. We should have an aggressive conversation as a nation about Israel, but it's wildly inappropriate for White House staffers to be undermining their boss. Just get rid of those people.
I don't know if I actually agree with that, and let me tell you why. Right?
Okay.
I understand your frustration, and I get the overall point, and actually agree with the overall point that there are a lot of people who are in these positions of influence and power on these staff teams that do make it harder for us to do our goddamn jobs. However, I think the ability and allow it, like we can't. Like, if we go full Trump, it's not a road I want to go down, right? That we have to purge everyone, right? I think that the ability that's what makes Democrats the good guys. That our staffers, when we allow them to protest and we don't fire them, right? I think that's part of what makes us the good guys. Okay, if we start acting like Trump, I don't think that's not that's a fail state to me. I don't think that's a winning move. And even if it was effective, I don't think it's the moral choice here. I really don't. And we have to find a different way to get to the same result that you want without going full Trump. That we just have to.
I don't agree with you. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't
Then fight
either.
me.
I don't
Okay,
either.
both of you. I'll
Go
take
ahead,
one.
Dev. Go ahead. You first,
Like,
Dev.
there is a place for
Gamergate
debate
and anti-Gamergate teaming up right now
Against
against Whick. Let's
Everyone
go.
hates it. Go ahead.
there is a place for debate when you think that like maybe Biden's doing the wrong thing, but to have your own staffers undermine the leader, right? To have them undermine your own team when there's things that need to get done, to do it publicly, that's just being traitors in the end. Because like there are ways you can bring that up. You can have those debates in private. There are other avenues to do this sort of thing, to dissent. Those shouldn't all be taken away. But to do it so publicly and so centrally, to have it come from his own staff on the White House property, that is just traitorous.
Yes.
I think part of purging the progressivism out of the Democratic Party means that you have to understand you cannot be so tolerant that you let actual enemies within destroy you. Because they do exist as well. It's not just Trump talking points. There actually are enemies with them.
Yes,
they are real.
I agree with you that they are real, but again, to fire people who exercise their First Amendment right to protest in front of the White House for a cause they strongly believe in, and I don't even agree with their cause. Okay, I think they're dumb, but like we have to hold these things sacrosanct. I really do believe that. I really do believe that.
Sure.
And let me, I'll deal with you in a second, Brianna, but let me deal with Dev real quick, right?
Deal with me. Wow.
I'll take y'all both on.
You have
We're
the
fighting
pleasure
today. Okay, we're
of
fighting
dealing
today.
with me.
No, but to your point, like this idea of them traitors, being traitors to Biden, I just reject that entirely. Like this treason, traitorousness, this kind of talk is authoritarian in nature, and I do want my ideal world is where I can fundamentally disagree with the president, with my employer on something and not get fired. But like I said, if they were actually like refusing to carry out orders, like bringing like documents where they needed go, that's one thing. But if they're doing that, but they also protest, I think that's an entirely different thing. Does that make sense?
I understand your argument,
Yes.
Whick. I think you're attacking the wrong argument. We are not, or at least I am not saying they need to go because they protested the president. I am saying they need to go because their ideas are fucking bullshit and they suck. And let me give you a very concrete example. When Democrat talks about gay rights, what did they say? Go look at Biden or Harris or any elected official. They're going to say something effective. LGBTQIA plus community. LGBTQIA plus community. Can either of you tell me a single public policy that queer, like intersex, asexual, like plus needs? What is the public, like if you're in the government, your business is public policy. I know the public policy that gays, lesbians, bisexual, and trans people need. For the queers, what is the public policy stake that has to go? This is language meant to satisfy no one and be brand safe so you don't get yelled at.
I'm going to be
It
real
is
with
part
you.
of this. Hold on, let me finish my point. It is part of this politically correct push that is coming from within the Democratic Party of just shitty ideas. And that's the objection. It's not that them protesting Biden is a symptom of bad ideas that just are unsellable. So if you have those ideas, you have to go.
So I'm going to be real with you. I'm
Go
not
ahead.
sure what queer means anymore. I thought I did. I don't know anymore. Can you guys help me? I don't know.
It's just being alt from 20 years ago. That's all it fucking is now.
Yeah.
It's just like an aesthetic.
It's being goth without the fashion sense, essentially.
It's being demon mama. That's what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Fair enough. So no, I can't answer your question in that case. I don't know.
I mean, I think there's some policies that intersex people need with regards to genital reassignment when they're very young, because there's some problems there. But for the most part, yeah, they don't really need anything.
Is that like, does that not get rolled into tea close enough? I think so. Like, let's say it's not. It's just political cowardice. It's like every single letter needs their own special day. and we're going to celebrate them. And it's like asexuals, I'm sorry, like cancel me if you want. Asexuals have no fucking business in LGBT. You just have no public policy stake. You're not queer. Like you just have.
You're not even having sex.
You're not even having sex. Like, stop making shit about you. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
I think this is to piggyback on that. This is a kind of a symptom that the left has, is you have to be all or nothing, right? It's either we solve all the problems or we can't solve anything. Like it's where you see sense like Gaza is a feminist issue, or all these things where they try to tie in all the different struggles into this omni struggle, this all cause that
it's intersectional stuff. Yeah, just bringing it all together.
I understand why a lot of them do it, but it doesn't work. It keeps us from doing anything. And I think it's just, I agree with you on that as a concept that just needs to go. We need to segment and silo these things and talk, and we could deal with the issues one at a time. The NRA, one of the reasons it's so damn effective, like them or not, they got one issue. One, guns. That's it. Right. And that's all they ever focus on. That's all they ever talk about. They don't try to play any other kind of games with any other issues. One issue. And I think we, like, from a strategy perspective, that's just the way to do it, in my opinion.
I agree. And, just to be really crystal clear here, Dev, like, I'm not saying if someone's asexual, you should be a jerk to them, right? What I'm saying is there is a common, what I'm saying is this strategy of making every single person feel special and elevating their identity to the point that it's got to be worshipped and venerated is a failing public policy for Democrats. And what I'm saying is if we move to like the same thing that works in corporate America, like we found out all this diversity training does not make better teams. What does make a better team is stressing a message that if you're a white man and you're a trans woman, the equal respect across the board is a fundamental value of the team. That actually leads to a better workplace, because if you do anything else, you're just inverting the hierarchy of oppression. So I think that if Democrats, like if someone is non-binary, I'm not an asshole. I'm going to do my best to call you by your pronouns and they, them. I will hand to God do my very best. Because, like, I want to talk to people with respect. But, like, this venerating every single subgroup is so tedious. And it makes the Democrats seem like the most elitist, out-of-touch losers imaginable. Like, what happened to just being chill with people? Dev, you make jokes about yourself being overweight all the time on your channel. I can handle a trans joke or two. Like, there's no need to take ourselves so damn seriously.
What you're talking about is what the dissident right says in their circles online. They call this Fresh Prince liberalism, where it's just the idea of 1990s era liberalism, where there is still a black voice, but it's not one that denigrates white voices. And it's kind of it's like, oh, we're like racial partners, it's that sort of thing, right? And now they use the term Fresh Prince liberalism derisively because they want to go back further than that. They think that Fresh Prince liberalism inevitably leads into progressivism. I don't think it does. I think it's actually a positive thing. I think going back to the 90s would probably be one of the best things for the center left.
I agree.
Okay, no, I won't sing the song. $5 from Statutory Ape. How does the panel feel about Trudeau saying he will arrest Bibi for war crimes if he steps foot in Canada?
You heard about that?
Yeah.
Did you actually hear what's going on?
The ICC issued arrest warrants for Bibi Netanyahu and one other guy. And the Trudeau came out and said that if they do step foot, that he will carry out those warrants. I think Dearborn, Michigan also voted that they will do the same thing.
Yeah, not like he'll be going to those locations anytime soon, but it is just kind of a virtue signal. Right now, Trudeau is basically just doing whatever he can to hold on to power because he is, I don't know if you guys know what the Canadian political situation, but he's so fucked. Trudeau is he is out the door as soon as the next no confidence vote is held. Like he's done. He's done.
Why?
He's incredibly unpopular. Basically how there's like a bunch of there was a bunch of right-wing conspiracy theories about what the Democrats were doing under Biden during COVID and shortly after COVID. And none of them were actually true. They were all like, either they were just completely made up or they were like, they were too hyperbolic about what was actually happening. Those are the things that Trudeau actually did here.
Well,
Like,
aren't
if
you
you-
gonna make like a trucker video about that or something? Like I keep hearing.
Yep, at some point it's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
It's coming at some point. But basically, like for example, after the borders had to be closed for COVID in 2020, Trudeau like tripled the number of immigrants that came to Canada. We went from 30 million to 40 million people in the past decade. Like it's like 25% of people in Canada right now came in the past decade, and they're immigrants. It's way too many immigrants for a country of our size and of like how many resources we have, how much housing we have, like all the problems that right wingers think are in the United States, and some of them are there. They're all here in Canada, and they're ramped up by like a factor of 10. Like Canada's really fucked right now.
I used to think this was bullshit, Dev. And, Lauren Southern, who is obviously my best friend, I've talked to her about this a lot. And, her talking about her changing, like, because she grew up with the stuff you're talking about and seeing the nature of her city change. I think that's actually a fair argument, to be really honest with you.
Yeah, because like the house that I moved out of, I think my rent there was under $1,000, and now a comparable place is $2,000 more. So it's like $3,000 to rent the same place in the same location. Like things have gone truly insane here. And for the longest time, Trudeau was just like virtue signaling about it. He was just like, "Oh well, you guys are just all racist, and Canada's a great country, and everyone should come here." And eventually he had to turn around and be like, "Okay, yeah, we fucked this up." Like he's desperately trying to hold on to power. How the system works here is that we can call elections any time. It's not every 4 years. If you get a minority, or if you get a majority government in Parliament, you have a guaranteed 5 years. If you get a minority government, you have to have the support of one of the other parties in a coalition. And as Trudeau continues to piss people off and get more and more unpopular, more and more MPs from other parties are abandoning him, and there will probably be an election called at some point.
The left-wing Canadians in my Twitch chat are going crazy right now. They hate this. They say you're giving,
deal with it, 'cause it's fucking true.
They're saying that you're giving right-wing talking points. I don't know anything about Canada. I can't speak to this either way, but I'm just
I can show you the numbers of immigrants coming in, man. Like this is documented.
Fair enough.
StatsCan has all the shit on their website.
Look, God, okay, again, just cancel me. I don't care anymore. I thought all this unchecked immigration was a lot less problematic before October 7th. And, I think that it is worth a conversation if people are coming into your country that fundamentally do not believe in democracy and your values. That seems like a very reasonable concern to me. As far as Netanyahu possibly being arrested, this really upsets me. There are plenty of people that have done way worse things than Netanyahu has done, which is just defend himself. That the ICC has not done anything about, and I think it speaks to this double standard that Israel is consistently held to. So all it does for me is weaken my trust in the ICC and the international community even further. It seems just ridiculous to me.
Fair enough.
What's interesting is you've basically come around to like the 2015 Sargon position, right? Because in 2015 you had the European migrant crisis begin. I'm sure you guys saw the videos back then where there was like the doors open in Greece and in Turkey, and like millions of Syrian refugees just start walking on foot into Germany, just walking through the European continent. And a lot of them were completely like unvetted, and there were people who were claiming they were from Syria and they weren't from Syria. And the left wing back then was saying, if you object to this, you are just a racist bigot.
Yeah.
And it's like, well,
yeah.
There's a more sophisticated conversation to have here, because there's obviously a humanitarian aspect where you should help people who are fleeing from war. But if you're not vetting these people, you have no idea where they're coming from. You have no idea if they might actually be terrorist cells, or if they're just people who are from a different country and they just want to go get some government money or go on an adventure or something, which has happened, right? There was a story that came out a few years ago where like a fighter in ISIS who had owned girls as sex slaves escaped to the West, and then the sex slaves had also escaped to the West, and they bumped into each other in Germany. And he's like, "Yeah, I used to own you." And she was like, "This is fucking terrifying. How is this guy here?" Right? And so the constant shouting down for 10 years now of just, you're a racist if you think there's a problem with any of this. It has basically it's shredded the left's credibility when it comes to immigration, more so in Europe than in North America, but it has bled over to Canada and America as well.
Yeah, just to back up off that, like complete mea culpa on this. I was looking before I did my trigonometry hit. I was re-looking at Trump's Muslim ban. Go look at those countries. So the way he got that Muslim ban was looking at a list from Obama where theocratic Islamists were potentially bringing had high populations that were hostile to democracy and dangerous to American Jews, like high risks of terrorism there. That's where those lists came from. Go look at those countries today. And for me, as someone who is a lot more familiar with the dynamics there today than I was before October 7th, I'm looking at this, I'm going oh shit. I was really, really quick to just call every single right-winger that was advocating this policy a racist. And there's actually, I'm not saying I 100% agree with it. I'm saying there is a salient national security argument here. There's a fair argument about Jews here.
I want to focus in on that because I think that's important. Because I think that while people like Sargon, I think he correctly identifies a potential problem. But the solutions that I hear from kind of the more right-wing side of things don't feel like solutions to me, right? So just ban them all, right? Or just we just need to close the borders entirely. They don't feel like actual solutions to me. So while I take your point that yes, there are issues here and we need to figure out a way to solve those issues, I don't think that the correct move here is just to kick them all out or deport them or things like what Trump has 100%. Threatened to do. I find that I just wanted to make that clear, right? That we can recognize potential problems, but we can also say, hey, your way of dealing with this problem is weird and insane.
Well, what I'm saying, just 1 second, Dev, because I want to be really clear about this. What I'm saying, this is my point, that I, as someone on the left, when that happened the first time around, I just shut it down. I was racist, don't talk about that, bad idea, don't look into it further, don't understand the policy, and that is not constructive. What I'm saying is I'm saying that moving forward, I am personally going to be a lot more willing to think through these ideas and make really sure there's not a valid public policy stake. So sorry to talk over you, Dev. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, let's hear what Dev has to say. Let's let the Canadian talk for a minute, and then we got to make more money, but go ahead.
It's also the case that things are different in Europe than in North America, right? In North America, Canada, and the United States does not have a land bridge to the Middle East, and Europe does, and it's a very different situation. And the immigrants that are coming in, the ones who may be coming in illegally, they're different, right? I know there's a lot of fear mongering about immigrants coming in on the American southern border, and there's some good reasons for it, but fundamentally, they're Latinos, they're Catholic, they share a lot of the same values as a lot of Americans do. Things are going to be okay. It's not the same when you're talking about people who might be, Islamists coming into Europe. Yeah. It's a very different conversation, and they don't share a lot of the same values.
I can't pretend to know enough about the European situation to comment on how Germany and others handled that situation. I just don't know enough to really make that comment. But how I try to make decisions and how I try to make advocacy for things are based on principles, right? And I think that the principle that you pointed out earlier, there are people who are fleeing from war and who need help, and they should get help. It does come into tension with the other principle that a country has a duty to keep its citizens safe, especially from foreign entities. There should be a way to solve this problem. The problem is we haven't even been able to have the discussion, as Brianna said, right? We just can't.
I mean,
because you're racist.
I'm not a racist, to be honest, and say that what's happened in this country after October 7th is our Jewish friends and neighbors have been targeted by theocratic Islamists. It's just the truth. There's a ton of money coming in from, these countries to organize protests. There's a organized political project to turn the victims of the Holocaust into the perpetrators of a totally fake Holocaust. And, I think it is in our national security interest to keep our Jewish friends and neighbors safe. That doesn't mean everyone that's a Muslim is a danger. Of course not. But there's got to be a vetting process, and it is utterly reasonable to make sure that the people that we're bringing into this country believe in democracy, right? Like, if your mission is to replace the Constitution with theocratic Islam, I actually don't think I want a ton of people like that brought into the United States, particularly from countries that want to hurt us. So I'm just saying, I think there's a more sophisticated conversation about our immigration system that we need to have that I was totally blind to a year ago.
I think a lot of people are hopefully waking up, especially after this election. Let's make a little more money, and then we'll get. I want to drill in on that specifically. Artemis Fowl for $5. Destiny was 100% wrong on what Americans cared about. Told people they were wrong when they complained about the cost of food and rent, and no self-reflection. So on that, like, I do think it was a mistake by Biden and others to kind of just try to just not own the pain people feel, right? Like, whether or not the numbers go up on graphs, okay? And this is a mistake I made. I'll cop to this. I did this, right? I was like, well, actually, I understand that you're suffering, but the overall economy is pretty good. And, I mean, by a lot of metrics, it can be, right? But I think that was a mistake because it ignored people's, like, actual pain. And I don't know the correct answer here. I don't know how best to navigate this, because I won't lie to you, right? Like, the economy's not in the shitter, right? But it's not the best. So how do we navigate this? What do we think?
Well, I mean, I had this conversation with Artemis actually several times over the past 6 months or so. And I basically said, like, okay, so you have this data, right? And people are reporting lived experiences that don't line up with the data. So either the government is just lying about the data, which is possible, but I think unlikely.
Yes.
Or the people are lying about their experiences, which is possible, but I think even more unlikely. Or the data is failing to capture some other effect that we just don't know about yet. And I said that's number 3 is probably the answer there, is that there's probably something else happening with the economy that makes it look good on paper and doesn't feel all that good to the actual people who are living it.
To counter that, just a moment to push back on that, like, the argument from people like Will Stancil, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with him on Twitter and things like that.
Of course.
Would be that, well, the reason that they're reporting this is because they have been psyoped by the media and social media, and it was a psyop by the right wing to make everyone feel bad about the economy, whereas the economy was actually fine. How would you answer that?
I mean, I think that's probably part of it. I think there's definitely some people who see things on social media, and that, like, a great example is that there's people who say, man, the price of food has really gone up. And they'll go to their own grocery store, and then they'll see that the price of food has gone up. And then their friends will say the same thing. But then they'll also see 20 different social media posts of people from different parts of the world saying so that prices have gone up. And that might only capture part of what's going on, but they still see it reinforced in social media. So social media is a part of it as well. There's definitely a vibe session, as they call it, element to this. But it's not all that as well. I think now we're at a point where real wages have caught up, but for a long time that wasn't the case. Like, inflation was solved, but it still took like another year for wages to catch back up. So people were still feeling it in the interim. And even if it catches up, you're still going to be behind because you've only got back to baseline, right? Like, if you're like, I remember Artemis sent me an article of more people than ever have been using their credit cards to pay for essentials. We're talking like rent and food and stuff, right? And it's like, well, even if they get caught back up, even if their wages are now going up again, and the it's matching inflation again, they're still going to have that debt from before. Catching back up isn't enough to pull them out of the hole that they had to go into to survive, right? So it's still not going to feel like a true catch up. And then also, I think there's just in fact, I know there's a psychological effect here because I used the book in my Bayesian video like last month, where basically psychologically humans take losses worse than equivalent wins as they take them well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
thinking fast and slow.
It feels worse to lose even if you gain. Like, so if you gain 20% of an income boost, that feels less good than 20% loss in income feels bad.
Yeah.
Oh, that
So
makes
so
sense.
so the book is Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a psychology book, and he basically said that if you have like if you gain $100 and then you feel like 100 happiness points or whatever, if you lost $100, your average person feels like 140 sadness points. So we take losses worse than how well we take gains, and that is a documented psychological effect. So I think when like someone sees prices go up, they feel bad about it, and then they see their wage go up, and they're not going to, even if it goes up in an equivalent manner, they're not going to feel as good about it. And also, when they see prices go up, they're going to blame the government or the corporations or something. But when they see their wage go up, they're going to be like, "Oh, I'm a good worker. I just got a
did that.
raise.
Yeah.
I did that." Yeah.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
and these aren't unreasonable feelings, but I do think that they add up and they lead to a feeling that things might be worse than they actually are.
Mm.
And that's not to say that things aren't bad, because things are also still quite bad. I'm not
No,
trying
I
to
get you. I
downplay
get you.
the actual pain people are feeling either.
It's a hard needle to thread, right? Because you want to be accurate in your reporting, but you also don't want to like just shit on people either that are suffering, and they're always going to suffer. Let me finish these super chats, and I want to kind of dig in on something that Brianna said earlier, and just kind of explore that a little bit. $2 from Satan Gray. Bree going full anti-commie is based. Thank you for the $2.
Yeah. Screw those commies.
10 pounds from Rizius. While it is fair, Dems need to purge extreme leftists that don't understand teamwork, does that mean we need to be chummy with centrists like Lex Friedman, Piers Morgan, Trigonometry,
Yes.
and Joe Rogan?
Yes. Yes.
And me, yes.
And Dev. Be nice to Dev.
What do you mean by chummy? I'm just really curious. Rizius, can you clarify? Like you don't have to agree with them on everything. I don't think that's what anyone's asking to do. But one of the things that we've done wrong, I feel, in the last 10 years, 12 years actually, is we've decided that to paint these people as evil, as Satan, as terrible. There's a type of person on the left, and these exist on the right in a mirror image too, but there's a type of person on the left that is waiting to call you not a real leftist.
Yeah.
They're just waiting.
Yep.
They're waiting for you to have one Republican take, to have one
100%.
thing to do, to be able to say, see, I told you all along they weren't really with us, right? They are the fake leftists. And I think that has contributed to the pushing people out. Like Joe Rogan used to be a liberal, believe it or not.
Yep. How about this, Whick? On my new show, which Dev has not come on yet.
Dollcast,
he won't hang
right?
out with three. He won't Dollcast. He won't hang out with three hot trans girls and me.
I'll come on it. Just let me know when.
Yeah. All right. Gotta come hang out with Taff and me. No, but what I was gonna say is, like, we invited Colin Wright on this show. Now, Whick, my entire job, the thing I literally get paid to do, is I have a really, really wide network of people that I've met over my career, and this skill of being able to pass legislation or get projects off the ground by bringing a bunch of people together is something I have just because I'm always talking to people and making friends. And on Dollcast, we brought in Colin Wright, who is someone who, let's be really clear, he said some stuff I really don't agree with trans women. But I also know at his core, he has some ideas that I can agree with, right? And I just want, like, the entire mission of our show is trans politics is so toxic and so crazy that the idea of 4 moderate trans women willing to have goddamn conversations with people is the most radical thing you've ever heard. So we bring in Colin Wright, and I must have gotten like 300 or 400 angry people screaming at me, how dare you bring him on? He thinks X, Y, and Z. It's just like they hold so much power over trying to deplatform certain people because they are so afraid of like building that bridge. And this is just a dead playbook Why?
Why are they afraid
I
of building
think
that bridge? What's the fear?
I think because the power they have, Wick, the power they feel is they don't have careers, they don't work in politics, they don't have friends. The power that they feel is being that hall monitor that sits there and tut-tuts at you if you're doing something they don't like. Because they're not interested in, like, how would you, like, make a connection? Let's say that the Manhattan Project had a really, really bad idea at some point. How would we even talk to the people over there? Who is in a position to even know people on the phone to talk to about that? This is such an obvious thing I've made a mission to do, is to understand some of the people in this movement, just have a working relationship with them, to understand what they're doing, to keep the door open, to maybe see if they've got some good ideas that I can get on board with. And I found overall it's decent people that have a political mission that I've got some problems with. This is normal politics. In any other field like steelworking or pharmaceuticals or defense industry, this would be just how business gets done. But for some reason with these progressive causes, like, we can't hold normal relationships with people on the other side. It is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
I guess that brings it back to what I wanted to get to, and I'll get to the other super chats in a second. Don't worry, but this is important.
Sorry,
I don't want
I
to forget
got
it. No, you're
fired
fine.
up.
You're
Yeah.
fine. That's great. Like you both mentioned that we need to purge, right, the progressives and get them out. Like, that's all well and good to say. What's the path though? Like, how? Because they have, if they're the ones in the positions of influence and power, how do we make sure that they get out? I mean, I have my ideas, but I want to hear yours. I want to hear Dev first, then I want to hear Brianna Wu. Dev, like, how do we do this? What?
Put them in camps.
Okay. Put them in camps.
Well, I mean, you have to be effective, right? You have to show that, oh, look, it is the more center left people, it's the more centrists who are actually winning elections, and you far left crazies aren't going anywhere. And if you're effective, then I think the wins will kind of stack up in your favor given enough time. Right. I mean, that is kind of how Trump did it in some ways, because he has purged a whole bunch of the old neocons, like the Reagan types, out of the Republican Party. And he did it by winning, by being effective. So I think you have to win things first, and then you can get people on board.
Well, to push back on that, like, we've seen people get primaried out, like Jamal Bowman and some others, the more extremists, right, in the party have been primaried out, and we have had some moderate wins in special elections, primary elections, etc. But that doesn't seem to be, all that does is seems to kind of feed into the leftist brain rot narrative, right? And no offense to Cenk Uygur, but he participates in this, that there's these shadowy organizations.
Don't talk about my friend.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? That are
No.
like, he's like super populist. Like, these shadowy government, AIPAC and all these groups are just funneling into money and we have to oppose them. Like, it doesn't seem to, they're not getting it. Does that make sense, Dev? Was that at all?
Call them retarded.
Just call them retarded.
That's pretty much how it has to be.
Oh,
like,
okay.
like nothing speaks louder than actually winning. It's as simple as that. So, like, they can sit on the side and kind of throw their peanuts, but if you have wins, nothing speaks louder than that.
Fair enough. What are your things, Brianna? Echo his sentiment.
Dev, I want to call on you. We need your help. What I want you to do is to make a video with philosophical, like, underpinnings. We've got to chart a new culture for the Democratic Party. And I would love to, like, this is why I love your work, because you go into history and philosophy and you help me understand why these ideas that I'm drawn to intuitively, like, have a historical path. The way you kick these people out is we just change the culture of the Democratic Party. I don't think I've said this word in 30 years, but I'm going to say it right now.
If it's
I want a Democratic Party where if Dev says the word retarded, he does not get kicked out of the Democratic Party. I want us to say, like, that's stupid. This is not the culture that we need to have. I want to have the culture change. So we have a laser vision on winning, and we are willing to compromise to win. And these groups are asked to act like adults, finally. And I want us to start speaking to people in real terms and just jettison everyone. Like, if you're a Hamas fan, you're gone. You're just gone. Like, we've got to change what the party stands for.
Basically, I think what you're saying is you have to make pragmatism a core value.
Yes. And getting along a core value. Like, if someone has a bad idea about trans people, do you think in the course of my career, I don't have to deal with that like an adult and learn how to work with those people? Of course I do. Right? And the ability to like function with people that may not subscribe to my exact interpretation of what a trans woman is just something I have to do. It sucks. It's not fair, but it's the job. And the Democratic Party just does not think like this. It's like, we've got to grow up. We just got our ass kicked.
To be fair, I think within the next 5 years, the right wing might start feeling the same problem, because if you look at like the most extremist big accounts, like Jack Posobiec, for example, he's very much on a purge the right of all the dissenters line right now, which will have the same effect long term as the anarchists did on the left, just purging all the dissenters. And like he's very uncompromising in wanting to get everything done. He wants all the recess appointments. He wants everyone that Trump wants in there. He wants every single thing on Trump's checklist. And he's not going to compromise on any of them.
Yeah, they're calling to primary any senator, Republican senator who doesn't vote for everything that Trump wants. Yeah, I agree with you. That's going to, like, again, Monday we're talking to Tracing Woodgrains. He's been registered independent his entire life. He just registered Democrat because he sees this push from the right. Like, we talk a lot of shit on leftists here for good reason, and we love to do it. But the right, oh my goodness. Like, there's a reason I'm on the left and not the right, because as bad as the left is, the right is going to be worse, right? The idea of purity testing is going to be, look what they did to my boy Connor, okay? Connor just had a fundamental disagreement with Trump, and so he was willing to work to get Trump out of office. He's a lifelong conservative, lifelong Republican, right? He's got the bona fides, and they just ate him alive.
He's a Marine. He's a literal Marine.
Yeah, they ate him alive because he wouldn't go along with the Trump playbook. And I see that a lot of the mistakes that the Democrats have made in the last 10 years are beginning to be echoed by the right. And I'm just curious how it's going to play out. I really am.
See, this is why I like being in Canada, is because Canada's Conservative Party doesn't have this problem right now. And I am going to be voting Conservative in the next election, whenever it is, because different situation, right? Like, I'd probably vote Democrat if I were in the United States, and in Canada I'm voting Conservative because the Liberals here have gone fucking insane. It's...
Yeah.
Yeah, this is now like a really deep philosophy conversation, but there really is no conservative wing of anything in the United States anymore. Like, you have liberals, and then you have like revolutionary anarchists on the left, and then you have MAGA, which isn't conservative at all. Like, they're not conserving anything. They don't have any core conservative values. They don't have any sort of like conservative psychology. They're all revolutionaries. They're just not leftists.
Look, the biggest frustration I have with the Republicans, and it's not all of them. There's some outliers here, but the MAGA line seems to be, let Putin do what he wants. Never, ever stand up. I know, Dev, I'm bringing this up because you recently had a little bit of a back and forth that I saw on Twitter, right?
Somehow one of those tweets went viral.
Specifically are responsible for the ICBMs that have been launched against Ukrainian cities. Care to answer for your crimes tonight? Okay. Why did you let Putin do that?
It was pretty based, actually. I want the escalation. I want the streets to flow with blood. There's my clip.
Wow,
that,
you're gonna get the clips at least. They're gonna make videos on why you're evil now. And
yeah, well, I've already had a few of those. Fuck. No, like, for some reason, one of the tweets that I made went kind of viral, where I showed like from the second Lord of the Rings movie, and it was the Battle of Helm's Deep, and the orcs were like climbing over the walls, and I said, "Don't shoot at them, guys. You might escalate the conflict." And like, it's clearly just like a joke, and for some reason that one took off. It's like, okay, that's just how Twitter is sometimes, you know?
Yeah, I guess the reason I'm bringing it up as well, though, is I see this more and more, like the and I have arguments with Republicans like on this all the time that, oh, it's not our fight, we should stay out of it. NATO is the one that's being the aggressor, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just wondering, like,
God.
I think back to when I was like 5 years old, right? Maybe a little older, but I remember being in school when the Berlin Wall came down. Do you guys remember that? You're old enough, Brianna. You probably remember.
I think I'm too young for that.
Yeah. And we did this. I was young enough, right, where we did this play acting of tearing down the wall as it was getting torn down on live TV, right? And our teacher was letting it run, and we were having fun with the big, like, soft blocks of wall, and we were tearing it down with them, right? Like, where is that Reagan style Republican? The Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. The one that said no to Putin, right? The one that, well, not to Putin specifically, right? But that said no to Russia. The ones that were like, America will protect our interests overseas. And the interests of democracy overseas. And we won't just sit back and let a tyrant come in and just take what they want. Why has a Republican... Help me understand why the Republicans have abandoned that stance. I just don't understand.
It's PTSD from the failure of Iraq. Iraq War II.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. Because the anti-war crowd from the 2000s was fucking everywhere, and they basically had all the moral authority on their side. And the whole, like, America should not be the world police. And even culturally, like, you know, literally the America World Police movie, stuff like that, right? Like, the idea that America should be stomping around other countries and setting these terms and enforcing these international laws became so unpopular. And that was kind of the counterculture of the 2000s. And now those people are in their 30s, and they're looking at the two parties, and they're saying, well, the only one that is basically implementing those beliefs that I want are the Republicans under Trump right now, and so they're going that way.
I just feel
I want to be a Top Gun Democrat. I saw Top Gun Maverick. I'm like, yeah, that's the America I want. So I don't know. I think you're completely right, Deb. I think it is. I think we learned all the wrong lessons from the Iraq War. The right lesson is put the right people into power and support your troops when you send them to a mission, right? The wrong lesson was America is weak and should withdraw from the world. And it is tremendously disturbing to see the Republican Party having learned that message. So,
one of the things that I get accused of all the time is being a war hawk. And I mean, look, I like Pax Americana. Okay, I'm not going to lie. But, like,
same.
At the end of the day, I want peace in Ukraine. I want the war to end. And you know what, gang? The war can end as soon as Putin gets back across the borders. Then we can have peace, right? But until
same thing with Hamas.
Yes,
same thing.
They just release the hostages.
Give up the hostages. Just give them up.
And if after the hostages are released, or after Russia retreats behind the borders, and then shit's still going on, we can have a different conversation, right? But as it stands now, Russia, like in 2004, we had a bunch of countries join NATO, okay? Because Putin was threatening them, right? They were like, we think that Putin's going to come and take us back because we just left Russia a decade or two ago, right? And Putin's making some noise that he wants to come back and get us, right? And so they're like, can we join NATO? And that was allowed, and we let him in, right? Putin has made no, again, watch the Tucker Carlson interview, of all things, right? He's made no mystery of it, what he wants. He wants greater Russia. He wants all the territory that he lost, that the USSR lost back. He wants Poland, and he's just going to keep going until he's stopped. So this idea that we can just sit and watch and nothing bad will happen and peace will be in our time, I'm sorry to rant on this, but it bothers me on a fundamental level.
So I had a conversation with Artemis about this today, in fact, and he actually showed me a poll, and it was a poll showing that the majority of Ukrainians, for the first time, do not want to continue the war. They now want to settle peace somehow. They want to meet, and the majority of them are actually willing to give up some territory. So it seems like their fighting spirit is kind of waning at this point. And my view of it has always been, it isn't America's war because they're not part of NATO. But I mean, it's still good to help them out, to send them supplies and stuff. However, it has to, like, basically the Ukrainians have to be the ones who are running this operation. This is their show, right? And if they want to keep fighting, then we should give them everything that they need to keep fighting. And if they want peace, then we should respect that as well.
Certainly.
So,
like, again, if the Ukrainian people, right, as a whole, and not just one poll, I'm not going to go after one poll, right? Like, if and they can do this through their government channels. If they want peace, I think we should put them in the best position to get peace. In fact, one of Trump's appointments recently was actually someone that I'm not totally against. Mike Waltz made some statements about Ukraine and what he feels with Ukraine, and he wants to kind of bring both parties to the table. But he's like, yeah, I think we just need to make Russia suffer enough to get there. So he mentioned specifically using real sanctions on Russia in order to, like, especially their gas and oil and their other energy productions, and to kind of strangle them that way. And two, to again, just like what Biden did recently, authorize Ukrainians to use weapons to fight back in Russian soil. And so I was actually kind of impressed with that pick. But then the next day he put out all those other picks, and I was like, okay, whatever. Right, but
so here's the issue, right? Because I mean, it is just one poll, but it still has some value. However, under Ukrainian law, they're not going to have an election to see that poll realized, right? Because until the state of emergency is over, there are no elections, and elections are pretty much on hold until a maximum of 6 months after the state of emergency ends. So either Zelensky has to respect the fact that his people are starting to not want war anymore, or if he decides to unilaterally keep pushing for war and not come to the peace table, despite the fact that his people might not want it anymore, then we have to have a conversation of should we keep supporting him? Because now it's like, well, yeah, well, because like if Zelensky for some reason decides to keep using his authority to not sue for peace, even as it becomes more obvious that his people want that, then the West should say, okay, listen, if this is what you're doing, we're not going to support you at this point, because now it's clear that it's not even in the interest of your own people to keep doing this, right? There is some line that has to be drawn on the other side as well.
But I'm asking what that line is, right? Because I agree with you. Like, if obviously it becomes obvious that it's not just like 51%, but an overwhelming majority is like, okay, enough. Because I'd have to look at the poll, because asking Ukrainians,
I'll dig it up real quick. Hold on.
Do you want peace?
Yeah.
I mean, sure, okay, right, but what does that even mean? So I'll have to look at the poll and the phrasing and things like that.
So while y'all are doing that, the one thing I really can I change topics slightly? Because this is the one thing I really wanted to talk to today. So we touched on this at the beginning of the show a bit, but this is really heavy in my mind. I mean, what in your mind, like, we're talking about the future of the Democratic Party. What in y'all's mind is the future of the Democratic Party and trans rights? Because I think this is a top thing that we've got to chart. And, I think, like we were talking earlier about, like, the capture by younger staffers pushing towards, like, a maximalist position on a lot of stuff. And I think we've talked about this focus group, where I think that they've, like, gone and looked at trans people and said, like, this is the maximally safe message to have. It's really clear to me this does not have a future at all. So what do y'all think the future of, like, trans support looks like in the Democratic Party? Because to me, it looks like we say, okay, look, we're going to stop today this nonsense of trans women in women's sports. Like, I think the argument is more complicated than the conservatives are saying, but I'm sorry, I need HRT more than 600 people need to play in professional sports. It's a losing issue. Over 75% of people do not agree with this, and fairness is just tapped into people's brains. It's a losing issue. It makes the public hate us. That's got to be gone. I also think the Democratic Party needs to be really clear and say, look, if a gender diverse child comes out, we want to stand for non-bullying. That's reasonable because those children exist. I was one of those children. But this project of introducing curriculum to cause children to deeply question their gender. I saw a form for an 8-year-old the other day asking if they identified as transmasc. Like, there's no reason an 8-year-old needs to be asking if they identify as transmasc. That is insane. So I think that, like, we've got to step away from this fringe, like, ideas when it comes to transgender support and hold a hard line. And to me, a hard line means access to healthcare, access to legal gender change, access to the public commons, meaning bathrooms. But I think it's really, really time to step away from this non binary, crazy political project of recklessly messaging this stuff towards children. I think it does nothing but create enemies out of people. How do y'all feel about that?
I'll give my take and then I'll let Dev give his.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. I don't think we need to abandon trans people. Like, I don't think that's the way,
Sure.
right? I don't think you're advocating for this, to be
No,
clear either,
no.
right?
I'm advocating a stopgap position.
We do have to have a democratic leader, right? A democratic leadership that is willing to look at the extremes of the party, not only on the trans issues, but other issues, and say no. Not just privately, but publicly. One of the things that Kamala, I think one of the mistakes she made, right? And I understand why she made this mistake. She didn't want to, like, alienate people. I get it. But one of the mistakes she made, there's a lot of people who were more on the center who were just waiting for her to publicly say no to the extremists. People are right when they say she didn't run on trans issues. She didn't run on the wokeness. She didn't run on any of that. And that's true. But she also never, and I can't find a single clip of her ever saying no to any of it. To ever saying, no, this is bullshit, and we're not going to do this. Like, I can't find a single one. Not to ACAB, not to trans issues, not to any of the extremist shit, right? Not to say that trans issues are extreme. You know what I mean, right? But
there's a fringe to the trans movement. Yeah.
But she needed a sister soldier moment, okay? Like Clinton had. And I know I've told my audience this before, but I'll tell y'all's. Sister soldier back in the 90s, Clinton had this moment where she made some crazy statements about race. So when Clinton went to the Reverend Sharpton's, like, Rainbow Coalition dinner or something, right? He was asked, or that came up, and he said something to the effect of, if you switch white and black in that, it could have came from David Duke himself, right? It was extremist. He publicly denouncing an extremist view in his party, even when it might have cost him votes from that extremist wing, helped push him over the line. That's not the only reason he won, obviously, but it really gave people a permission structure to say, okay, he's not going to be beholden to these extremists. I think Kamala needed that. We never got that. So what does the future of the trans movement look in the Democratic Party that I want? It's one where they are respected as people, where we do fight for their rights, but we don't listen to their crazies. And we call their crazies
what does that mean? Get granular.
Sure,
what does
granular.
What do
it looks like
we
make sure that they have access to the medical care they need to all that entails. I'm not a doctor. You guys can figure it out. We push back against anything regarding kids and trans issues. That's poison for a lot of reasons. And we push back against anything in the Democratic Party where we do this, like, thing where, like, how to explain it? Just because you're trans doesn't mean you're right. And we need to stop being scared to just we need to stop being scared of being called a transphobe for pushing back against something that's stupid. That's all. That's my thoughts. What do you think, Dev? I want to hear your response too, but I want to give Dev a chance here, so go ahead.
I think, well, a lot of it's optics, right? Optics is a big part of it. I mean, it was Pete Buttigieg types who won gay marriage. It wasn't like the weird fetishists who were having sex in public on top of the gay pride floats, right? It was MLK, not Malcolm X, right? We all understand what's going on here, where you have a legitimate grievance, but it's the moderates who actually make progress on these things. It's not the extremists. The extremists tend to make things worse. So basically, optically, the trans community has to clean up its act, which is a big ask, but it has to be done if you want to be seen as normal and able to integrate in society. You have to actually be normal and be able to integrate into society, right?
Yep.
And I
that's the
think,
whole reason I started Dogcast, 100%.
mhm. And so like once people who might be a bit ignorant of what trans people are understand that they are just people, a lot of them will come over, because we've seen that happen with other demographics in the past. Beyond that, see, this is probably just because I'm not trans, but personally, I'm not sure if the legal ID thing really matters all that much. Like if a trans woman has M on their driver's license, like does that change their day-to-day life so much? Probably not, right? It's one of those things where like I don't really care which way that one ends up going. It's not a big deal, because it's just like something in your wallet. It's like, okay, well, whatever.
Oh, maybe
Okay.
maybe Brianna
then
knows
tell me.
better than us. I don't know. Right?
What changes then, practically speaking?
Sure. So what changes is if you're at a job, you're outing yourself. If you're going a apartment, you're outing yourself. If you're encountering the police, you're outing yourself. There's every reason to be very strategic in when you're outing yourself. And just having that documentation be congruent. This is actually a big deal. This opens the doors and allows you to live your life. So I could not disagree with you more strongly on that, Dev.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, the way I see it is like it shouldn't matter anyway. Like if I were a police officer pulling you over and then you handed me your driver's license and it said M on it, I wouldn't care, right? And I think a lot of reasonable people would not care. You're like, oh, okay, and it's not a big deal, right? But I can see how if someone is bigoted, it would matter, right?
I wonder if this is a fight you think is worth fighting, Brianna. It's something I've heard come up.
Legal gender change? Yeah.
No,
100%.
not that. Right? I get that that's worth fighting.
Yeah.
But there is a group of people, right, who will not accept trans roommates, for example.
Don't care.
Don't care. Okay.
Personal choice.
I'm just trying to get a
no.
kind of
Look,
like an idea of where
they're
picking our
racists
battles.
out there. They're transphobes. Like we've got to deal with this like adults, right? Like I'm sorry, life is not fair. If you're trans, it is super not fair. So, we've got to deal with that. But I think, Dev, I think respectfully, you are really like my life was so much better before I publicly went out and said I was trans. Like I get called a man probably 2,000 times a day now. It was so much better before I started talking about this stuff. So I think you have an idea of how people are going to treat you, and it's just not the reality. So,
well, it's probably a difference in culture as well, because in Canada things are not nearly as ramped up as they are in the United States. People really do not care here about a lot of these minor issues. Okay, well, hold on. I probably said that incorrectly. It's not a minor issue, but you know what I mean, right? Like people are a lot more polite here in general because we're Canadians,
yeah.
I guess let me think. When it comes to stuff like public spaces, I think the trans movement has to understand that it really isn't all about them. That it might be affirming if a trans woman can go into a woman's washroom, but there are also non-trans women who are in there as well.
Yeah.
Right? And it is also their space. And in fact, it's primarily their space. And the consideration for how they feel has to be also part of the conversation. So maybe that means you can only go into those spaces if you've had bottom surgery. Maybe that means that you have to pass, right? Like very clearly, I don't know a single woman who would ever be okay with like a 6'6" fucking bald bearded ogre in a dress claiming they're trans and walking into the women's room, right? Like no one's gonna accept that shit. But I think most people would probably accept passers, right?
Well,
so there has to be some line that is drawn.
Well, that's the thing
where other people are now comfortable with you being in that space.
That's the thing about the whole bathroom discourse is it's always been a passing issue, right? You have to pass, even if you're a cis woman. And I've known cis women. We had one on last night who has been accused of being trans, and they get shit, right, when they try to use the bathroom. It's always been about gender conformity when it comes to the bathroom issues, right?
Yeah.
Always.
So this is my very seriously considered public policy solution on this. So one of the things that really changed 5 years ago is progressives hijacked the W path, which is the standards of care that we have to go through to legally change genders. Like when I did this, there was a set of criteria you have to go through. start with 3 months of therapy. From there, you go on HRT, you get an endocrinologist, you have letters written. Like, there was a process all along the way. Dev, you will love this because it asks some personal responsibility from the trans person, and then you got something in return, like a change in HRT or your legal status or all that stuff. So what I want to do is this fringe progressive idea of self-ID is just cancer. It needs to die today. No more self-IDing your way into women's bathrooms. If you're not on a medical pathway for gender change, meaning therapy, hormones, endocrinologists, letters, a clinician looking at you and certifying that you've got this stuff and raising the standards, then you do not need to be in the ladies, because this entire political project, it makes my life much harder. Like, I've never had an issue in 20 years using the restroom. But, you know, this focus on it is going to disproportionately affect people like me. So I think, you know, Dev, your comment that transmedicalism is the way to go, I think that's 100% right. And very last thing, Whick, our friend Connor is backstage. I would love for him to be able to come hang out with us.
Also, I did find that article, by the way, about the previous. I put it in the group chat. The previous conversation, the Ukraine poll.
Oh, you guys tagged me on DL. I wasn't even looking at Discord. Sorry. Anyway.
Oh no.
But no, I looked at that poll. So my issue with the I understand the poll, right? But like, it's the same thing with the Israel Hamas, right? Both sides have to agree to end the conflict. And I don't think Russia's going to accept terms that these people would find acceptable. I could be wrong, but I've seen some of the terms that Russia's put on the table. I would be shocked if the people who are saying they're willing to give up some land would be okay with what Russia wants. Does that make sense?
No, I understand. I mean, the way that I've always viewed it is, because Ukraine is the aggrieved party. This is their show. We should help them in the way that they want to be helped. So if they want to keep fighting and none of the peace deals are good, then fine. If they do decide that this is a peace deal they want, then we should support them there as well. Because I'm not actually someone who is a bloodthirsty war hawk, despite what people on Twitter are saying.
I'm a little. Speaking of bloodthirsty war hawks, Connor, how you doing? What's up?
No, perfect. Yeah, hi, good evening. Good to see everyone. SFO,
Hello.
Good to see you. Wick, good to see you.
Do you two know each other?
Yeah.
Dev?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think we swim in each other's orbits, so to speak. Yeah.
I think we've been on a couple Stardust shows, and I think we've been on this show once. Adam and Church a couple times.
Yeah. That's going great.
Yeah. So what brings you about, Connor? Have you been listening to the conversation? What are your thoughts? Why did the Democrats lose? I guess.
What? No, actually, I'd love to jump into that. And then also, my headphones are acting a little wonky, so if I start looking confused because I can't hear you, just know that I'm messing with my system. But why did the Democrats lose? I think it was running a tough campaign too late in the game. What I mean by that is my personal opinion. I understand it might not be popular, but I think Biden probably should have dropped out. I think they probably should have done an open convention. I think that running Kamala, what was it, like 90 days before the election? Was it even that? And then basically having this rushed game where she had to rush to the center away from her own talking points in 2019. I think that appeared to be disingenuous. Now, that being said, that's the campaign I would have run given the circumstances presented.
Fair enough. Pretty reasonable.
That is pretty much what I said. Yeah.
Not much to push back on. I mean, like I think I disagree with the. I don't disagree. If Biden had chosen not to run, that would have been a better choice. But he did, and us forcing the issue did us no favors. That made it worse.
Well, I think people can kind of horse race. I guess I forget what they call it, where like you're swapping horses or whatever mid race. But I'm sorry. My wife is telling me I need to go live on our end, so I'll go ahead and do that.
Go live on your. While you do that, I do have to use the restroom real quick, so you guys entertain my audience.
Sure.
Time to get Wick banned.
Oh no,
Let's talk about
not
some
the
spicy stuff.
N-word, anti-Semitism.
How do you guys feel about pedophilia?
Right. Okay. Hold on. We'll get into that later. So so hold on. So the one thing that I want to point out, though, is that I think on election night, a lot of Republicans kind of believed that it was a blowout. But I think that the popular the popular election numbers have pointed to it being a lot closer than people thought on election night. If I remember correct, the original numbers were like 67 million or something like that for Kamala, but they hadn't finished counting the West Coast states. And now it's closed to like 74 million for Kamala and 76 million for Trump. So I don't view this as like a massive repudiation of the Democrat Party, but I obviously side with the more centrist part of the Democrats who want to jettison the far left.
Yeah.
Those are all fake votes, though. You have to understand. All the ones that came in, all the ones coming in California are all fake.
Yep. No, I mean, my frustration is I still have people. I had a cousin who posted on Facebook. Can you, and let me just make sure that can you hear the Discord ? I had a cousin on Facebook who asked, like, oh, I'm straight up asking, where's the 15 million votes that disappeared? You know, how is this not proof of election fraud? And I basically, this was 3 days ago. And I was like, well, just letting you know, like, they've counted all the electoral votes. They've closed it to 76 million. That's only missing 5 million people compared to 2020. And if you asked me, were there 5 million less people who would be enthusiastic about the election cycle this time around? And if you also asked me if 5 million people wouldn't show up because they weren't stuck at home because of COVID, I think those numbers are about right.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Connor. Like, Dev, I think like our journey over the last 10 years has been like, I've certainly come a lot more towards the center in your way of thinking.
Thank you for the 50 gifted. J-Mac, sorry. J-Mac, thank you for the 50 gift subs. You're a treasure.
We love you, J-Mac. You're amazing.
Sugar daddy.
No, I was just going to say, Connor, like, you're certainly in the center. Do the four of us think there is... I really do think there is an emerging will in the political marketplace for centrist ideas. Like, this is something I see on the ground. It's certainly something I saw canvassing this cycle. Whick, you canvassed a bit. You must have seen this too. I really think I think the majority of the population, from what I've seen, is just a pox on both their houses. They're going to turn on Trump the instant he gets elected because now he's the establishment and they're going to hate him too. Do we think that there's a future for the American political system that has a rational middle, and then these freaks that are angry at you, Dev, on the right trying to cancel your channel, and then the same freaks on the left there trying to cancel your channel, where they're just noise? Do we think that we're finally at a point where this is viable?
Not yet, but I think it's coming, yeah. I think we'll see it within the next 5 years.
I agree.
And it's not just in the United States, right? Because I don't know if you guys know who Kraut is, but I've been talking to Kraut a whole bunch. Yeah. And his whole thing is he's like, listen, we need to rebuild a liberal YouTube after the tankies have like run through it, and after the alt-right back in the day ran through it. And there has to be some sort of positive liberal message out there. I agree with them. So like we've been talking about like what videos to do, and we've been working with each other. Like there's been.
I think that one of the risks with that, though, right? One of the risks, and I hate to be Debbie Downer here, right, is if it comes off as forced or fake, or it comes off as manufactured. Like I heard this. I've heard this from Destiny's community. I've heard this from other communities. Like, we need an answer to the alt-right monopoly on radio and monopoly on podcasts, like the Joe Rogans, the Lex Friedmans, all those people, right? The reason that Joe Rogan and Lex Friedman and etc. are so successful is because they're viewed, again, rightly or wrongly, as genuine. This is their real thoughts, their real talking points, their real issues. So they didn't. They while they may have actually done this in the background, chose to build this up, that wasn't the face they put on it, right? And I one of the things I think we have to be careful of is coming off as we're just building the liberal pipeline, and it looks manufactured. Does this make sense? I don't know, right? What do you guys think?
It makes sense, but at the same time, I think that part of the, not to. I'm not criticizing PV with this at all, but a lot of these criticisms came at us while we were advocating for a Democratic candidate. But I think that's because, Whick, I've heard you disagree with the progressive left. I've obviously disagreed with the progressive left, but the PV itself, Brianna has as well. The PV itself or whatever was actually supporting the Democrats trying to get the election going. But just that label was enough in the political sphere to be like, oh, you don't believe what you're saying because you don't actually line up with these people. And so what I think is, I talked with Brianna maybe like a year ago, and when she was down in Orlando, and I was like, we need a coalition of sane people from the left and from the right. And what I would basically do if I was appointed dictator of the centrists for a day is I would build a coalition of like liberals, libertarians, moderate rightoids, all that kind of stuff. But then what we would do, because obviously breaking that binary is going to be so hard, you would just lean in the direction that was most catering to the center. So in my opinion, this election cycle, coalition Republicans and Democrats should have leaned a little bit left because the Democrat was making signals that they wanted to play to the center. Next election cycle, if Hassan Piker is the head of the Democrat Party, and then we have like a very moderate Republican, then we should lean Republican. And then therefore you basically become kingmakers between the current power structure.
By the way, thank you for the this month's check, Brianna. I appreciate it.
No problem. You
Have
do
we all
get
gotten
paid
our
in trap
Zionist check?
stuff.
By the way, have we all gotten the
I've told
idea?
you many
So much
times.
black.
I've told you many times, Dev, you get paid in traps. That's what's in your contract. We'll ship them to your door. We'll make sure they're freaky just like you like them. But that's the reason.
Thanks very much.
I hate it that I know what you're referring to. I didn't before I started in like the YouTube stuff. I didn't. I would have been like traps. Like, what do you mean? Like a poison trap? Like one of those like guillotine traps or something? A guillotine traps? But now I hate that I know what you're referring to, I'll never forgive any of you.
So I think you're partially right, Connor. But I think there's like another everything that you said is correct. But there's also like another avenue that I think also has to be handled at the same time. Is that the reason that populism is popular right now is because it's relatively easy to understand, but also historically populists who get into power have a very hard time, at least initially, getting what they want done because they have no idea how to actually run a government. Like they're completely inept. They only see it from the outside. And this is something that anyone who has gone into, like worked in academia or worked in politics or worked in law or any sort of complex institution, they realize that when you're an outsider to that institution, you just see the front of it. You see the opaqueness and you say, oh, well, it's clearly corrupt and all the things that it does are clearly terrible. But then as soon as you actually get inside of it, and now you're inside and it's no longer opaque, and you're like, oh, there's all these working parts and all these things are put into place for a reason. Like anyone who's worked in like engineering says this all the time about engineering. It's like, well, oh, there's actually a reason why there's 18,000 different regulations for this, because all of these things could go wrong. And so there's something here where complexity necessarily makes things less transparent. But transparency is how you get people on board with what you're doing.
Yeah.
But that's the challenge, isn't it, Dev? So that's the challenge is when somebody said this on a debate panel today, it was in reference to politics. If you're explaining, you're losing. But when you have a wildly complex system or wildly complex ideas, then trying to explain how these things work and be transparent can sometimes feel like you're trying to explain away like a loss or a flaw or something like that. And I think there's a problem with the simplistic rhetoric where saying drain the swamp, screw the system, everyone's corrupt, let's burn it down and start again. These are all really like short sound bites, whereas breaking down what causes inflation takes more than 3 or 4 words.
If I could jump in for just a second here, like I feel like y'all are getting away from the question, or at least the point I'm trying to bring up here, which is like I hear you on the complexity. It's 100% true. Explaining that's definitely true. What I'm talking is like Whick, coming back to my earlier comment about the great scramble, where all of us are just moving across these lines of left versus right and finding ourselves with new homes and new bedfellows that we never imagined a few years ago. I think in the great scramble, like hand to God, Connor, you and Dev and you, Whick, like if I were in jail, like y'all would be people that I would call. Like, I don't agree with you on everything politically, but we share the same values. I consider every one of you friends. Like, you're on the same page. There's an adultness to you where, Connor, you have shitty views on abortion. It does not affect our friendship. Whick, I don't like everything you say, particularly about Dungeons and Dragons. It does not affect our friendship. You Dev, despite all that Gamergate stuff, we've end up in the same place. We
Mhm.
don't have to agree on everything to understand that our fundamental values here are the same. And I
Well,
think this is so important. This is the country. This is the future of politics, I think. It's all these fringe freaks that just
well,
turn everything into a left versus right screaming match. That's the dead end. And I
well, I
think
want
Yeah.
to.
this is the new coalition. Go ahead.
I want to make a statement, and then I want to ask Deb a question because
Yeah.
this is one of the things that I was almost preparing for this election cycle psychologically was I have identified like as a Republican my entire life, and not just that. I've identified with the Republic. Like I swore to defend the
Yes.
Constitution of the Republic as a military veteran. I swore to defend the Constitution as a law enforcement officer. And so it was a core part of my identity. So how do I deal with the fact that 74 million of 330 million people basically said, we don't care about the process. We only care about
No.
our espoused result. And by the way, I don't even think they necessarily care about the whether or not those results are actually achieved. They just care that somebody is promising them an end result. And so for that, that's almost like a direct attack to what I think keeps our system stable. And so my problem is that there are people who are capitalizing on the doom and gloom of our society, and they're actually saying, no, liberalism is broken, republicanism is broken, these systems don't work, we need to return to fascism, monarchism, communism, what name an ism that is an alternative extreme example. And so Deb, I kind of wanted to ask you about this. I saw you taking a little bit of a couple of quips at Mr. Sargon of Akkad. How do you feel about his kind of appeal to the black-pilled man in the Western world?
I mean, I haven't
Still here.
politically agreed with Sargon since like 2020. That hasn't stopped us from being friends, and we've had like lots of debates in the past. And I mean, I don't talk to him much anymore, but it's more of a personal thing that's happened, not a political thing, which happened in
Mhm.
private, and I'm not gonna bring up anything about that. But basically, like it's one of those things where for like 4 years I was friends with the guy while I disagreed with him.
Right.
And we could have like public debates on my channel or his channel or wherever we were on some of these topics.
Well,
So
then
I don't.
expanding it, how do you feel about the people who are capitalizing on what seems to be like the decay of liberal institutions and are trying to, I would say, radicalize young people into alternative systems? I would put Hassan Piker in this box of trying to radicalize young people into socialism or communism. I would put Vosh in this box to radicalizing people to socialism or communism. I would put Destiny in this box, but he's trying to radicalize people towards, progressive nihilist hedonist liberalism. So what do how do you feel about these people kind of capitalizing on the despair of the youth?
I do want you to
Well,
answer that question, but $100
okay.
gets to skip the line a little bit. J-Mac, thank you for the donation. And I see the other super chats. We'll get to them. J-Mac for $100, and you're free to jump backstage, J-Mac, if you want to join in. I'm more of an independent, so I would love to have a sensible right and a sensible left. However, it just doesn't play well in American politics. I think the only answer going forward is to focus on local elections and the legislative branch, and that's what I am going to do. And to piggyback off this, I've heard a lot of people say very similar things. There are people who are just done. I think that's a bit of a mistake, but we'll get into it. But I don't want to interrupt too much. Go ahead, answer Connor's question, and then I want to dig into this a little bit. Go ahead.
Sure. So you mentioned something like 74 million people who just don't stand for the same core values as you. I'm not sure that's true. I think a lot of them just got suckered, frankly. I think a lot of them genuinely
Yes.
believe what they hear about how it's actually, all of the attempts to go after Trump are actually lawfare, and there actually is a deep state that wants to destroy him, and they actually are out to get you. And I think, I think there is a possible future where the scales fall from their eyes. You know what I mean? I don't think it's all just people who have fundamentally different values than you. And I think I wouldn't be quite so doomer about it. But I mean, we can look at the people who are putting the scales on their eyes and hold them accountable for that, right? So I guess
you're
How do you
wildly
hold them
optimistic.
accountable for that? Like, what does that mean?
If anything,
this
they're being rewarded for it financially.
maybe so. But this is why I mentioned the complexity issue earlier, because I think at least part of the solution is to not be afraid about talking at length about complex issues and explaining things that people don't understand, right? And some people are going to be turned off by that. Some people are going to say that, oh, you're just obfuscating or you're just trying to hide it. But some people won't, right? Like when I made that 4-hour video about how Trump tried to steal 2020, there was a lot of hate there, but there were definitely a bunch of comments that also said, listen, I was a Trump supporter till I watched this video.
And really? Good job, Dev.
So it's basically just going to be a long, hard slog of being honest and being direct and being explicit and actually understanding complex things and explaining them.
I think,
and there's no shortcut of that.
I want to pin this and I want this shouted from the rooftops, because there's so many. I don't know what the word to use for these people are.
Open up.
Grifters, I guess, who want to sell you the easy fix, the cure-all.
Yeah.
This is
the one thing.
there's
I don't know if I call them grifters, but
I was
I
about to
don't
say
know
there's,
if that's
I
the
think
right
there's
word
a
either, right?
tactical I think there's a tactical mistake here
What's
and maybe I'm making one, and then I want to point out the one that I heard. So the tactical, or excuse me, this might be a mistake, but for me to say, but I agree with some of the things of the criticisms of the deep state, that it's an unaccountable, opaque system that runs the world, that nobody really elected America to be the world police. Nobody really chose to be involved in military interventionism the way that we have since World War II. But at the same time, what I think is going on is a lack of explaining why we're doing what we're doing. And there's a lot of like reflexive capitalization on people not caring about how international geopolitical security actually affects our day-to-day through macroeconomics.
Yep.
That's because it is complex. Explaining the entire global economy as a function of the American security guarantee is a really complex conversation. And you also have to admit to your ills. I think one of the things that we do is we try to sweep for all the bad stuff that we've done as a country. And then as a result, when they're like, well, how do you account for the fact that we sold like weapons of mass destruction to Iraq during the Iran-Iraq war? And that makes you look like an evil hypocrite if you don't mention the fact that you allowed evil in order to protect the system. But the tactical error that I heard, that I think that I think turns people off, is when you accuse people of grifting. Basically, what you're saying is they are saying something that they don't believe purely for financial or clout gain. And the truth is that I've been in enough rooms with these people that they either believe what they're saying wholesale, or they've deluded themselves into believing what they say. And so as a result, it can feel like dishonesty from the outside. But if you're part of their tribe,
that's fair.
They're being honest.
No, that's fair. No, I agree with you. Like I said, I was hesitant to use the word, and no, that's a good correction. I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. I think what you just brought up though, Connor, that's like one very important half, and the other half is something that we talked about before you came on, which was just the American rights PTSD from the failures of the Second Iraq War.
Oh my
right?
God.
So you take people who are like my age, like, you know, in my 30s, right? And we were the teenage rebels who were protesting the Iraq War back in the 2000s, thinking it was an absolutely terrible idea. So you take that sentiment of being very anti-war against an unjust war, combine that with the opaqueness of complex systems and how they're not being explained to us, we're not getting a proper education about them, how the people in power basically just talk down to us. Take that person, let them stew in that resentment for 20 years, and you have the dissident right in America. Like it's basically how it is.
I agree, but so here's the thing. So imagine that Bush comes out in 2002 when he's ginning up the Iraq War, right? And what he says is, instead of there's a new axis of evil, they have weapons of mass destruction, they're on the verge of giving them to terrorists, they're about to kill us all, et cetera, et cetera. What if he instead says, hey guys, we've been playing chess in the Middle East and North Africa for the past like 70 to 80 years to our economic benefit. And as a result, we sold weapons of mass destruction to Saddam Hussein in the 1980s. Turns out he wasn't a good ally, and he started using the weapons of mass destruction, including VX gas and anthrax, on his own people. And we thought that was kind of messed up, so we backed away a little bit. Well, he invaded his neighbor who produces a lot of oil, and so we went and kicked his ass 20 years ago, and we've been economically strangling him for the past 20 or 30 years. But this has been a rotten a rotten beam in the political structure of the Middle East and North Africa, and it's time that we go kick that beam out and put a new beam into the geopolitical reality of the Middle East and North Africa. And all we're going to need is about $2 trillion and about 5,000 to 10,000 of your dead sons and daughters. That pitch is not, it's not going anywhere. That's lead.
I mean, that's true, but I don't think America should have gone in there anyway.
No, I agree, but try telling. So, for instance, in this calculation, to me, what I just said, that's what Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld believed, and that's what they got George Bush to believe after 9/11.
Yeah.
I think this brings up and this is a bit of an aside, but I think it's important, right? Because I see by chat and I see them going, and I see a lot of people asking those questions, and I've heard a lot of people in my real life ask this questions like, why do you vote Democrat, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of people say, well, I don't like Trump, I don't like the populism, etc. But I think that one of the failures that Democrats have is we need a positive policy that we can sell to the American public.
Yes.
We need something to get people excited to vote for us, not just against the other guy. So what?
But dude, what is
that? How do no? You say we say policies, but what were Kamala's policies? It was like a tax credit for kids and tax credit for starting a new business and rebate to buy a house. No one's getting fucking excited about that.
Well,
how about controlling price controls on groceries? I think were one of them.
No one wanted that either, right?
Yeah.
No one fucking wanted that. Well, this is kind of a problem that I think people who are incumbent have, is that the person on the outsider who is promising change, that person inherently, because of their position, they have like a lot more momentum behind their movement, because they're coming in from the outside and they're saying, here's what we're going to do, and here's how the system is wrong, and here's how we're going to fix it. Arguing for what already exists is harder than arguing for change.
I don't think we have to, though, even as the incumbent party, right? I think we can do. We're no longer the incumbent party, by the way, so we'll have that advantage going in the midterms. Ha ha ha. But no, I think what we need to do is we need to pick 2, maybe 3 big issues, right? Big issues that we can run on, even in a progressive stance, right? That people believe in, that people will get excited about. And we also need to combine that and mix that with what Brianna was saying earlier, kicking out the crazies. I think that's the winning combination.
But your problem is that the big tentpole issues that were kind of partially culture war, partially policy, was abortion, guns, and then all of DC politics is allergic to touching economics because I think they're ultimately all liberal capitalists, right? Which I'm not saying that as an indictment. I'm almost saying that as a good thing. But the if anything, what I'm seeing in chat and what I heard from you guys is that price controls for groceries. What I hear from as like a capitalist or whatever is I hear good intentions that can turbo screw the economy, similar to other lefty nations in the past. That's what I hear. When I hear tax incentives or whatever, it's like you already have to be engaged in a behavior in order to economically benefit. And so as a result, if you already have 2 or 3 kids and you get tax credits, that's nice, but it's probably not, it's hard to conceptualize. And then it's also not like groundbreaking, right? And so I think that running on abortion is probably a no-go. I think you're going to have to run on that at the local level. I think running on guns is toxic because most moderate right-wingers like guns. And then I'm trying to think of what else. But what
run
would
on minimum wage? Run on the minimum wage.
But again, so here's my problem: is minimum wage is a price floor, right? And so what happens is when you this is my business 101 classes kicking in, is you put in a price floor. Well, what ends up happening is everything approaches that price floor. And so I think that the economy, this is my little schizo theory, I think the economy would be better off if you abolish the minimum wage, not going to be popular, but then brought back unions, meaning that the employees of each institution could negotiate their wage, working conditions, and benefits in concert with their supervisors in the business. But that's me.
I'm not sure if that would be popular, just because I'm not sure if abolishing the minimum wage is popular. I mean,
Well, I don't think
You know-
abolishing minimum wage would be popular, and I think bringing back unions would only be popular with a subset of the population. It would actually
Yeah,
be
like-
pretty
Well, that-
toxic
but
for a
we're
lot
looking
of
at
them.
winning an
if we're talking about
election.
good ideas, like I think Georgism's a great idea, but it's never going to get passed fucking anywhere, right? So, I don't know. Like, I think because the Democrats for like 2020 to 2022 just did not give a shit about the border, and immigration was such an important thing for a lot of Americans. Like, as soon as they came out with that 2023 bill, even though it was a good bill, basically the Republicans didn't trust them anymore, or like the center-right voters didn't trust them anymore. It's like too little, too late, fuck you, kind of thing. And now, of course, Trump torpedoing the bill also didn't help, right? But you know what I mean, though, is like, it just in terms of strategy, Trump knew to torpedo the bill because he knew that this was a sore spot for the Dems because they had ignored it. And you know, I saw a clip of like Hillary Clinton in like 2006, right, when she was primarying against Barack Obama, and she said stuff that's basically identical to what Trump says about immigration. It's like, listen, send the illegals back. They have to come here properly. You know, learn the language, become part of the culture. Like stuff that a right winger would say nowadays. And yet it makes complete sense. And I just think that there has to be a policy shift in the Democratic Party back towards the center on immigration, and also a language shift.
I think
as
this
well.
ties into what Brianna was getting at earlier, though, because that has been impossible to do, because you have people who are in positions of influence and power in the Democratic Party and the Democratic functioning institutions that make that a no-go, that make that just impossible to do. You just can't.
Well, one, I think Democrats are paying through the nose for it, and then two, this is kind of a tangent off of that, but at the same time, I just want Republicans to hold the Trump administration accountable for what their rhetoric is, because basically we've gotten, we're kicking everybody out, mass deportation, we're literally going to get rid of 6% of our population through mass deportation, this, that, the other, and then I'm literally seeing Trump and I'm seeing the current Speaker of the House, I forget his name, but they're both saying, they're like, yeah, we're going to do the mass deportation, but also we're going to go ahead and have the largest expansion in worker visas in the history of the United States. And it's like, really, like, okay, so we're basically we're shuffling them out the door, and then we're bringing them back in the door, but we're giving them paperwork in order for them. I agree that legality matters, but if legality matters, and this is going to be one of the most expensive logistical efforts on the face of the planet, then why wouldn't you evaluate the people who are already physically here?
I'm with
you. At that point, that becomes a quote unquote path to citizenship, which then becomes unpopular again with the same people who are suggesting this is policy. So there's this like total like cognitive incongruence with what's going to happen versus what was said.
So here's the issue, right? Is that at least some percent of the people in the MAGA crowd are just blind cultists.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. I mean, they want inflation down, but they like the idea of Trump's 10% tariffs on everything, right? Which are completely insane, because these two things fight against each other. You cannot implement tariffs and also bring inflation down. It doesn't fucking work. But these people are they're just basically Trump dick suckers, and that's all there is to it. and some level you can't convince people who have drunk that much of the Kool-Aid. But maybe the more reasonable voices on the right will hold them accountable, but I don't know.
Let's
All right, wait. I haven't talked to you in a while. I've got an idea. Big ideas the Democratic Party needs to stand for. NIMBYism needs to fucking die. I want the Democratic Party to become the cheerleaders for tearing down these shitty, small, old buildings and building awesome new shit all across the country. NIMBYism is just fucking gone. I want people to be able to walk through their neighborhoods and see new apartment buildings and new housing and all kinds of glorious new construction. The entire problem with the housing market is a supply problem. So I just want that to fucking end. Although that is at odds with getting rid of all the illegals, because they're who build our houses.
We need them for construction.
Yes.
So hold on. So this is my anxiety with just ripping up building ordinances and codes. And by the way, we share the goal. The question is the execution. Okay.
Sure.
And so I want walkable, mixed use, convenient
Whatever,
cities
right.
to be
Sure.
built up, right?
Sure.
But what I hear when I hear YIMBYs, yes, in my backyard, people who effectively want to rip up all the building codes so people can build whatever
Zoning
they
laws
want, and
are
so
the
well,
devil. Okay.
But so here's the thing. What I think is going to happen is we're going to trade one dystopia for another. What's going to happen is, particularly in cities such as Orlando, where I currently live, they're going to destroy all of the single family homes. They are going to build townhomes on all of these quarter acres and make the yards smaller. That way you can fit 2 families on a quarter acre instead of 1. They're going to have no provisions for the vehicles whatsoever, and they're not going to improve the vehicle infrastructure whatsoever. So all you did is you doubled or tripled or quadrupled the amount of people in the same space without changing anything about the walkability
if you
or
do it
the
poorly,
commercial
it's gonna be
support for
poor.
those people.
Yes, the poor execution is going to be poor, but I don't think we have to. I don't think that's inevitable that it's going to be poorly executed. I think there's common sense, smart things that we can advocate right now when it comes to zoning laws, when it comes to ordinances that are just not helping anyone, right? That we can get it done. Now, I'm
think
incremental.
the people with the money don't care.
I'm incremental in my execution here, right? Like I'm for pitching the big ideal, but being incremental in our solutions and our path to get there, in case we do run into issues.
I just want the Democratic Party to have the balls to be the one party in America that's not like, oh, we're too stupid and incompetent to do this, or we've got some special interest group that cares about this. I just want us to be the party that's like, we're going to build a shitload of houses in your neighborhood so you can finally own a home. One way or another, we'll build a whole new like subdivision. We will do this. I don't care. I just want us to start getting shit done.
Not talking about optics, but talking about practicality. Sure. I would almost prefer if they picked a Midwestern Rust Belt city to do this in. As an example, Detroit, devastated, lost 60-70% of its population. There's a shitload of abandoned buildings and infrastructure out there. So if you want to build the city of the future, then say, we are taking this entire section of Detroit that is 70% or 80% depopulated, and we are building the city of the future in this area. That I would 100% support.
Fine, we're getting granular. Here's another example. SFO, I would love your opinion on this. Education is the biggest fucking ripoff in America. The amount that an undergraduate degree costs is just fucking insane. So how about the Democrats become the party of actual education again? And they go, we're going to fund something that's a college that you go to. And look, there's no sports teams. There's no like landscaping everywhere. It's just like literally you go there, you get a degree, you're out. It costs $10,000, right? Just in and out. Everyone gets the same class online, whatever the fuck you got to do. Just this is education that's actually affordable. Here's something we can actually get done with federal dollars. Like I'm seeing big fucking ideas that break this gridlock that America is caught in. Let's say fuck the teachers unions. Let's say fuck the building codes that are bad. Let's say fuck all these things that are stopping us from like building the Elon Musk future we envisioned in the 50s. Let's become the party that can actually do shit again.
You sound like a neocon almost, which is fine, by the way. But like you're pretty much there. You know, deregulation and hyper-capitalism and okay.
Well, so that's actually another interesting thing too. I think the reason why I avoided the term neocon for a really long time is because I've always associated with international like military adventurism. That's what I've always associated it with. But when I checked out a little bit of neoconservative history, obviously I need to dig in a little bit deeper. But it was pissed off liberals in the 60s or 70s who thought that the new left and the fringe left were taking over the Democrat Party and making it way too leftist and socialist and communist sympathizing. And so as a result, they thought the Republican Party was a better vehicle for their ideas. And one of their main ideas was, espousing and promoting liberal mixed economy capitalism across the planet through military adventurism, which of course resulted in let's just say adventures in the 1980s, 90s, and thousands that might have helped cause the war on terror. But at the same time, like, I think they're fundamentally correct that like liberal democracy and mixed economy capitalism are universal human goods.
So
yeah, that's true. I mean, to be fair though, I think they started as Trotskyists in the 1940s. Like
which is also scary because you're like, oh,
Yeah.
you used to be a commie. Like, do I really
Yeah.
want to be associated with you? That's scary.
Well,
So-
this is where a lot of the rhino stuff comes from, right? Is you have like the paleocons before the neocons, and then you have the MAGA people after the neocons, and they both said the same thing: is that the neocons are rhinos, and it's because they started off as followers of Trotsky.
Mhm.
Um,
Which you would have to explain how Trotsky is separated
'cause
from any other communist
I'm
for me
trying
to
to
know.
avoid that topic, right? I don't want to go down the Trotsky rabbit hole. We do have a limited time, and I want to respect everyone's time. I want to do two things before we go, though. I want to finish these super chats, and then I have one more kind of big question to discuss for all of us. Okay, and then we'll respect everyone's time. Let me get through these super
Someone
chats real
super
quick.
chat about Trotsky. Then go ahead.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay, $5 from. I'm gonna lightning round these. Okay, so I'll read them and then we can discuss after maybe. But let's get to them. $10 from Lawson Harrison. Follow up. If data shows that the econ perception issue is due to American poor spending habits, it kind of does. How would someone rimming for office address that without committing political suicide? $5 from Artemis Fowl. The weird thing about ideal worlds is that they, for some reason, crumble in the face of the world we actually live in. $10 from Dwight Baldwin. Wu mentions Democrats not being seen as a big tent party anymore. RFK, Tulsi, and their supporters felt driven out by the party. $5 from Blocky Blah. Blahika Blah. Speaking of the suffering economy, I made a post about this in Discord, specifically about left behind counties. $10 more from Blahiki Blah. We have data that shows that in the left behind counties that represent 20% of the population, things are still worse than pre-pandemic numbers, which were already worse than the national average. True. €5, pounds, I don't know, from Rizius. My point is being chummy with dishonest actors, so since so-called centrists are MAGA supporters, an example is Piers. Man is Trump fan, but doesn't admit it. Okay, that's all of them. My big question, and I'm glad you're here, Connor, for this, because I want your opinion too. Trump and his presidency. A lot of people on the Democrat side have said it was going to be fascism, it was going to be authoritarian, it's going to be all these things. How bad is it going to be really? Were we being hyperbolic back then? I seem to see signs, such as with the senators rejecting Gaetz, for example, that they are willing to say no, right? Republicans are willing to say no to Trump. So what do we think? How much of an issue is Trump's presidency actually going to be? I want to start with you, Connor, and I want to end with Dev. Go ahead.
If Trump's presidency ends up being centrist or middle of the road or whatever, it won't be because of Trump. It will be in spite of Trump. I think that you are pointing out that this was actually Phil Labante's argument the entire time to me. He's a Timcast guy. He was saying, elect Trump because he has all the right policies and trust the institutions to moderate his behavior. As an example, while I'm critical of the hypocrisy involving immigration, I kind of think that getting a shitload of people worker visas to be here so that they're vetted and authorized to be here is the right policy. So if that's what comes of Trump's proposed mass deportation, awesome. Now, the thing is, I think that still leaves millions upon millions of immigrants to the United States potentially getting screwed. Same thing with Ukraine. Ukraine, we might end up with a centrist position, something that I've suggested probably for 4 years now, which is Ukraine concedes Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea, but then gets Zaporozhye in negotiations, and then they join a defensive pact with the Western world and an economic pact with the Western world. Whether or not that's NATO, who knows? But the question is, does Trump have the stones to negotiate that peace? And so you're saying, like, one part of your question was, were we being alarmist back then? My answer is no, because I think that if Trump was left to his own devices, he would have deported 6% of the population with no thought to construction or agriculture prices. I think left to his own devices, he would have screwed Ukraine and basically just said, hey, give up half your country, screw it. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Sorry, just to emphasize in case my point is unclear, if a Trump presidency ends up being centrist, it will be in spite of him, not because of him.
Brianna, what are your thoughts?
So, look, I obviously think Trump has fascistic tendencies, but I've thought a lot about what my role needs to be for the next 4 years, and maybe this is going to be wildly naive, but I'm willing to give him. I'm going to go in and just take it day by day and see what happens. And if things really go wrong, I'm going to save my criticism to use it when it really, really matters. I am not going to do Resistance 2.0, where everything he does every single day, I'm opposed to it just because Trump proposed
Give
it.
us an example
Um,
of where
well,
you would fire the cannons and go full throated. Right. Give us an example, a line he can cross.
So Tulsi Gabbard is DNI, right?
Mhm.
So let's say the New York Times went and published a story, because I personally don't have hard evidence of Tulsi Gabbard having ties to Russia. I've heard some allegations from people like Hillary Clinton that I trust enough for me to go, I would not do that, but I've not seen it substantiated. So there were reporting that came out showing that, yes, Tulsi Gabbard is a national security threat. That is when I would put it on the line. But I'm again, maybe it's naive. I think that half the country voted for Trump, and we have got to find a way to live together as Americans. And I think this time around, I'm going to try to talk to them more and find a way forward together. So maybe this will be breathtakingly dumb, but we're going to see what happens.
We'll find out. No, I think that's
Yeah.
probably wise. Like, hold fire until it actually matters, right? Don't
Yeah.
don't waste your ammo on things that
Yeah.
are little. That's why a lot of people like I've done shows on the cabinet appointment picks. I don't think we should fight every single one.
No.
Pick 3, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Pick 3.
Well,
and
we
fight
won
those.
one so far.
I know,
which was
yeah, we
Matt
got that
Gaetz.
W because and to my audience who was yelling at me about this yesterday, I just want to say, Whick was right again. I can't take an L
You're
on my
wrong,
predictions.
Chat.
Okay, I
You're
can't take an L
wrong.
on my predictions. That's all. But yeah, I agree with you. Don't just not everything's Nazi, not everything's fascist. Save the fights for the fights that matters. I want to hear Dev's opinion though on this. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think that Trump's a fascist. I don't buy that.
We could fight on that.
Yeah.
Maybe we could, but I'd probably win
Yeah.
that argument just based on all my historical knowledge. I don't think he actually follows an ideology. I think he's just a Trump is pro-Trump.
Oh
It's as simple
no,
as that.
he already won.
Yeah, it's pretty much that. Like he doesn't follow an ideology. He doesn't like adhere to any sort of tenets of any ideology. He does what is good for Trump. That's still bad though. Like I'm not going to say that that's a good thing. Like very clearly, his attempt to steal in 2020 makes him, in my opinion, not legally but morally ineligible to hold the office. And you don't need to be a fascist to try to steal an election, right? So he's even if he did good things, I think the attempt to steal makes it so that I have to oppose him on principle. But I still wouldn't be sad about the good things if he did them, obviously.
Fair
But
enough.
it's one of those things where it's like he has been elected, he is now in office. If he actually does good things, I hope people are more sane about it this time around.
Yeah.
Because in 2016 and 2017 and 2018, even when Trump did good stuff, people lost their fucking minds because it was Trump who was doing it.
So
Yeah.
And that is part of the reason why he became so popular, because he turned into this underdog despite being the president, you know?
I'm going to
And
ask you the same question I asked Brianna, though. At what
Okay.
point do you think it is appropriate to go full-throated 2016? Like, obviously, we did it way too much in 2016 and 2017, right? But at where should the lines be for Democrats? Where should the lines be for those who do not appreciate Trump? Where should we actually say,
It's
come on, man?
Ignoring the legislature and ignoring the judiciary, obviously.
Yeah,
those would
that's
be
a big
mine.
one.
Okay.
If he decides to try and like change the Constitution to get a third term in, or get a third term in without changing the Constitution, that'd be even worse, right? Like there are very obvious things you can point out. I'm not sure exactly where the line is, but I think when something happened, I think we'd all know it. It's like, no, this is too far. This is too much.
Well, yeah, but before we lose it, if you don't mind, Whick, I just wanted to make an argument and then defeat myself simultaneously. So Dev, I was going to argue that I I hung out, talked with fascist and nationalist creators like Keith Woods and Cultured Thug, who kind of explained fascism to me on like a fundamental philosophical level, and Giovanni Gentile. And we kind of boiled it down to political corporatism and flexible authoritarianism. And I think that there's an argument to be made that Trump is flexibly authoritarian, meaning that he doesn't care about institutions insofar the institutions either help him, at which point they're good, or they're in his way, at which point they're bad. Right.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to political corporatism, he's obviously somebody who, at least his rhetoric anyways, he advocates almost exclusively in the interest of the American nationalist identity. That's the only lens. That's the tribe that he is subscribed to. He loves that tribe loves him. Right. So I think that's sufficient to make a fascist argument. However, you kind of blew me out of the water in the first 5 seconds, because then you said, I don't think Trump is coherent enough to have this as an ideology that he actually like stamped into his brain and follows. Trump is just doing what Trump does, right? And so that's actually something that I believe as well, is like, I don't think he read Gentile. I don't think he read Hitler or read Mussolini and he was like, oh, this is good. I think he just does it.
Yeah. So in Italy, when the lower house of Italy's parliament was called the body, the House of Fasces and Corporations, and this is how Mussolini set it up. And he basically said, listen, each industry is going to have a council. There's going to be like a council of agriculturalists. There's going to be a council of smiths and a council of manufacturers, right? And it's going to basically be the system where the government, there's going to be a nationalized labor union that everyone has to be a part of. There's going to be representatives of private property on this council, and the government will use the council structure to dictate the production for the interests of the nation.
OnlyFans girls, okay? We need the OnlyFans council, but no,
there can be fascist trans girls.
But like when you look at what the historical fascists did and what they wrote about doing, none of that seems to be anything that Trump is doing. And it's probably because Trump just doesn't know or doesn't care, because Trump's policy just seems to be pro-Trump. What makes Trump look good? That's why he's selling golden sneakers. That's why he sells NFTs and like nonsense like this, right? So no, I don't think he's coherent enough to have an ideology that he follows.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm going to back you up, even though you're annihilating my argument before it even happened. So what I think that, at least the way that it was described to me and the way that I've described it to other people, is that the reason why you would build those technocratic bureaus to advocate for policy in each one of these realms is because you would basically be building a organ of the state, like a vital organ that advocates for the health of that individual organ. And then the state kind of comes down and then harmonizes all of these different political bodies in order to operate at the most like efficient level for the state interest. But that's kind of where, again, blowing my point out of the water, I don't think Trump would ever think to have organs of the state created in order to advocate for the health of the United States of America. I think it's just like, if you like Trump, you're part of the tribe. And then if you don't like Trump, you're not part of the tribe. Screw you.
It is that simple.
Pretty much where it is.
That
is pretty much where it is with Trump, I think. Yeah. That is like 90% correct. There's a few tiny things in there. Like I'm sure you've heard. We've all probably heard about like Hitler and the weird like occult stuff that was happening in the Nazi Party. A lot of that came about because the earliest studies in terms of how brains work, and they're mostly correct, is you see like we have neurons that are firing and you have pathways in your brains, and then human consciousness emerges as a result of these connecting neurons, right? It's an emergent property of having all the various parts of your brain lined up just so. The earliest fascists believed that the state worked the same way, that the government was a deity-like entity, that once all pieces of society fell into position, it would work like neurons in a brain and then generate this super consciousness. And so that was kind of the spirituality of the fascist state. And there's no fucking way Trump knows or understands or cares about any of this shit.
He's the accidental Buddha of fascism. Okay, he doesn't know what's going on. He's not.
No, he's like the drunken
it.
boxer.
Yeah, he's
better at it.
Right?
Hold on. There are. This is very similar to communism, communists and socialists. There is some 200 IQ committed, like a fascist philosopher in a basement somewhere who cannot get anybody to listen to any of his genius ideas. And then there's Trump, who doesn't believe or know any of these things. And he's just like drunk boxing into the perfect position. It's actually remarkable.
But
Well, that is literally Sam Francis, right? Because like, I mean, he died in 2005, but he was this extremely high IQ, very well read, PhD in history, white supremacist, right?
Mm.
And he was probably the most intellectual person on the very far right white supremacist movement. And he was like writing all this political theory, and when you read it, it's like it's insane shit, but he clearly knows his stuff. This is not like some redneck who's driving around in a rusted out pickup truck thinking like just hating black people, right? Like this is a very educated person. And they're probably the most dangerous people on in the extremes of any movement, is the people who they really do have these disgusting beliefs, but they're also hyper intelligent and they can really defend them, and they really do have some. It's hard to swallow, but they have some okay arguments in there too, you know. And you have to like you can't. This is one thing. This is why I think a big reason why I think the left has lost culturally, just in general, is they did in fact view all white supremacists or all right wingers or all whatever as fascists. They're like Hitler, but they're also like these rednecks who are completely uneducated, like 90 IQ, don't know how to do anything. But no, the actual danger is like the very educated, well-spoken, you know, intelligent anti-Semite, intelligent fascist who actually does have a coherent series of beliefs and is willing to back them up.
Okay.
Those people are actually very dangerous.
No, I agree with you.
The average SFO viewer, basically.
Exactly. And speaking of all that, right? I do have to go. I do have to end the show, but I want to thank you all, and especially you, Connor, for jumping in last minute, right? But thank everyone for coming here. Thanks everyone for being here. Gang, we got some great shows coming up for you next week. Next week we're gonna have on Monday Tracing Wood Grains to show you what a real centrist is. I'm not a centrist. They are a centrist. Okay, we're gonna talk to him. We're gonna have a great discussion. I'm going to try to pick his brain and kind of figure out what he thinks and why he thinks it and how to better reach people like him. I think it's an important discussion, right? How we can help him feel included in the Democratic Party is going to be very important moving forward. I want to give each of these individuals an outro, tell them where you can find them, their doll cast and other stuff they got going on. And then, we're going to just end the show. We're going to start with Connor. We're going to end with Dev. Connor, what you got?
Sure. My name's Connor. I obviously run Counterfire, which I'm live on right now. So if Whick does wrap up and you want to hang out with some more folks or whatever, Brianna.
Are you on Twitch or YouTube or which?
Both.
Okay,
both. It's still under Counterpoints on Twitch, but basically Counterfire is where Brianna and I we try to do a weekly live stream where we hang out, talk shop, talk politics, talk drama, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to come hang out with us, please do so. Also, I'm trying to post like 3 to 5 political or drama commentary videos a week. This week was kind of tough, but anyways, if you're into Warhammer or science fiction or science fantasy, I do have a Warhammer channel that's doing pretty good. I'm about to break 91,000 subscribers. And
okay, you got to give me permissions to raid into Counterfire, just FYI, but go ahead.
Okay, on YouTube or...
You still haven't done that, Connor?
I don't know.
You.
Oh, I'm a monkey. I'm a Marine. I don't know how to do it.
Anyway, sorry for interrupting, but go ahead. I'm just trying to do it now.
Low IQ. Low IQ.
Low IQ Republican. So so basically, if you're into science fiction or science fantasy, then go ahead and check out Counterpoints 40K, and I'll show you grisly violence and explain all the lore.
No, thanks for being here. And if we can figure it out, we'll just if he can figure out how to let me, we'll raid into him. Brianna, what do you got going on? Tell people where to go.
I got some closing statements. Whick, I don't like your new facial hair. I don't like it.
Hey,
it's
$500.
a big downgrade.
Okay, $500. I'll do it again.
It was iconic. It was very manly, and I don't like
very
this
wizardly.
So you need to make better choices. That's my statement about you. Come watch Counterfire with Connor and I, but please tune in and watch Dollcast if you want to see sane trans women, like moderate trans women that are interesting. Like Dev, back me up here. Taff is objectively one of the coolest women you know, right? I mean, Taff is amazing, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Come see Dollcast.
She's also a fascist, though.
She is a fascist. That's true. We've not talked about her lack of faith in democracy, which brings me to my point for you, Dev. You're so hard to get a hold of. What are you doing 2 weeks from now? We've got a Trump surrogate, a literal Trump surrogate. Yes.
What do you mean hard to get a hold of? You're the one who doesn't reply to DMs.
No, I've been asking you forever. When do you want to come
Hold
on?
on.
Do you want?
Just wait. Hold on. I'm
Yes.
checking the DMs right now. When I see when you last replied.
Okay.
Give me
Okay.
a second, because I will also. I know
Keep scrolling up. Keep scrolling up.
during the election, things were
It got crazy. It got crazy. Can you come on the 7th? Can you come on the 7th?
on the 7th.
Oh, 8th. Wait.
8th.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I'll have to look at it. I have to
All
look
right.
at. I might have something else going on then. I'll have to look after.
All right.
Here,
You gotta
I'll
come
message
on,
you. I'll
dude.
message you on Twitter just so I know to look at it, and you know to look at it too.
I will.
Yeah.
All right. So that's my closing statement.
Got
I'm
to
good.
check it out on the 8th or the 9th or the 7th. I don't know when. But sometime you're going to have the Dev versus the Doll cast. And so that should be
That's
fun.
right.
Check
It's
it
gonna
out,
be
guys.
It's gonna be a versus.
I don't think so. I think it's gonna be hanging out.
I want it to be a versus. I want it to be a versus.
Okay,
Anyway,
it's gonna be a versus. It's
No,
gonna be a
thank you.
versus.
Check her out. Check out. Thank you for coming on, Brianna Wu. I know you got a busy schedule. You're getting on the big shows now, like Piers Morgan.
Y'all
and things.
don't even know the big thing that happened that I can't talk about next, but I'm about to leave this planet, y'all.
But I'm just saying, I appreciate you still being willing to come on my itty bitty channel. So I thank you for that.
Of course.
Thank you.
Whick, you're my buddy.
Oh, thank you. Dev, take us home.
Well, the channel is called Short Fight Otaku. I'll probably be changing the name of it. I've wanted to change the name for years. It's just a holdover from my 2009 anime days. It's probably time. I'm not really that, like, I still like anime, but I'm not really that person anymore. I'm not making anime videos anymore, you know? I'll probably change it to something. But I mean, I don't do much streaming. I'm currently in a kind of transitory situation regarding my home living life. Once I get settled down into a new place again, I already had to do that a couple months ago, I'll probably start streaming more. But for now, I'm still in video essayist hell, which, to be honest, is actually a great place to be in because I have a lot of fun making them. I am making longer and longer videos, and I'm doing some political stuff and some not political stuff, or like semi-political stuff. So I had that just real quick. I'll give you a quick TLDR of what I'm making, what's coming up in the next,
Please.
I don't know, month or two. I had the video about why I believed Kamala Harris would be a bad president. And that video, I'm now just basically retooling that into why she lost. So, I mean, it was supposed to come out before, it didn't come out before. I was making that trilogy about Trump, why I think Trump's a bad president. And the first part came out. It was how Trump tried to steal the 2020 election. That was like about 4 hours long. The next two parts are going to be about what actually happened in 2020. You know, how Biden didn't try to steal it. And then also the January 6th riot. And then I'll probably because that's going to be something like 15 hours of fucking content. I'll probably make like a 20-minute video just like going over all of it and putting it all together into like one nice little package. But the deep dives will be there. And also on the video game side of things, I'm doing a deep discussion on that god awful fucking game that came out past in August called Dustborn, which is
Dustborn?
The $400 million game?
The $400 million game that was hyper woke and was absolutely terrible. Like every woke stereotype was in Dustborn, and it was so fucking bad. Oh my god!
Were there trans slime girls in Dustborn?
Yep. Yeah.
Really?
Everything. Listen, all you have to do is go on Twitter, do like a quick search, or go on YouTube, do a quick search of Dustborn, watch someone's playthrough from like 10 minutes, and you will cringe out of your skull. It's like. Okay, you know you have that one friend. Like if you have like a lefty friend group, and there's that one friend who's just too woke, and they're always like hyper woke all the time, and they're always checking everyone's pronouns, and they're always like tone policing everyone, and every conversation has to be about something ridiculous. That's every single character in Dustborn all the time, and it is a telltale. It's a telltale type of game, so it's all conversations, the whole fucking game. It's genuinely god awful to play. It's so bad.
Game for $400 million? How does it cost that much? Yeah,
it wasn't made by Telltale, but it was. It's that type of game.
That style game, like how can that cost $400 million to develop?
Someone in my chat is saying Concord was 400 million and Dustborn was 100, but
I don't know. Sorry, I may have gotten my mixed up.
But 100 is still a lot for a Telltale game.
It took them 8 years to make. And they blew through a bunch of money, and it seems that a whole bunch of it just seems to be like just wasting money, corruption, people just taking paychecks and not really making much of a game, you know. There is like a quality of game is bad conversation, and then there is the controversy surrounding the development of the game because it took like a whole bunch of money from the EU government, like ridiculous amounts of money were wasted.
Oh,
And
no.
then there's the conversation about what it actually means politically because it is it's ridiculous. So that's going to be like a 2-hour video. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be fucking brain rotting, and I feel about this game the way that some people feel about The Room, that movie. You know,
So
Tommy
bad it's
Wiseau's The
good?
Room. So bad it's
Oh.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was imagining Brie Larson with a kid kidnapped in a room or whatever, but you were talking about
Tommy Wiseau. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
nice.
Okay, counterpoints. We're gonna raid you on Twitch, but
YouTube people just type
you
in
failed.
Counterfire. I think I'm the only channel with more than a
You-
few thousand subs on there.
yeah, you failed on the YouTube
I
thing.
did.
But anyway,
Oh!
gang, I'll see you guys on Monday. Tomorrow I get my tooth fixed. Yay!
Oh, yay!
I know it's been a while in the making. I know, but we got it done. We got it done.
Nobody can give you shit about it anymore. I'm excited for you. You
My
can be like,
fear is they're
"You
gonna be like,
guys."
oh, we gotta wait a week for a reason or some shit. But we'll see. I'll see you guys
That's awesome.
Monday, 6
I'm
p.m.
gonna be
Eastern.
texting you. I'm gonna be texting you. I got the Lego Dungeons and Dragons thing, and I got the module to actually play Dungeons and Dragons. I've never done this before, so I may need some help.
I'll see what we can do. Okay,
All
I'll see you
right.
guys later.
All right.
Bye, bye,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
See ya.